A vision becomes a milestone when it helps make our lives richer with love and laughter. When it helps make a cleaner, smarter, and a more beautiful planet. So that you can set off on joyous new journeys and adventures. Building stronger bonds and bridging impossible distances, which take you from the ever new to the forever beautiful. Opening up vistas and windows to a vibrant new world. A vision becomes a milestone when it touches millions of lives. Aditya Birla Group. Big in your life.
We made a promise to be at the forefront of development, to power growth across the country, to set an example for cleanliness and to create a land of opportunity. From bountiful reserves of minerals to steel that's strengthened by resolve, from untouched tribal cultures to undiscovered lands of old, we are many and we are one. We are Chhattisgarh.
We always wonder what lies beyond. What lies beyond conventions?
Hello, Blue Link. I'm feeling hot.
Blue Link, I'm feeling cold.
Beyond technology. Beyond innovations. Beyond mobility. Amazing things can happen when we go beyond. At Hyundai, we're going beyond mobility, and you're welcome to join us.
My parents. मेरे लिए ना कॉलेज चुना ना सब्जेक्ट्स, बट उनका प्लान था बहुत ही स्पेशल, जिससे बन गया मेरा फ्यूचर।
LIC का न्यू चिल्ड्रंस मनी बैक प्लान जो आपके बच्चों का फ्यूचर करे प्रोटेक्ट हर जरूरी मोड़ पर।
इट्स अ फ्यूचर बिल्डिंग प्लान।
Hi, Ma.
Luxury. In India, I discovered that true luxury isn't something you buy off a shelf. True luxury is a feeling that you are the Maharani of your world, and it can be all designed around you. All the beauty is yours. All the music is yours. India showed me that luxury doesn't follow designers and brands. True luxury follows its own heart.
Incredible India.
Good evening and welcome to day 4 of the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit in its 19th edition. If you've been tracking us, I'm sure you've enjoyed the enriching discussions from renowned speakers in the field of politics, policy, science, and sports. We just have 2 days to go. So make sure you make the most of our dialogue sessions. And here's what's coming up today. We have an interview with Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chouhan coming up. We have a very interesting session in the technology and startup sphere. But before that, our first session, our guest today is someone who's really aspirational for so many young people in India, Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Google. The Chennai boy who joined the company in 2004 was appointed head of the global tech giant in 2015. Let me hand over now to HT's editor-in-chief, Sukumar Ranganathan, who is in conversation with him today.
Welcome to this special edition of the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit. Like with most things many of us have done over the last year and a half, part of the summit is going to happen online this year. We are delighted to have with us Sundar Pichai. Usually when people are introducing someone who's reasonably famous, they say needs no introduction, but Sundar really needs no introduction in India. Must be one of the most searched names on Google. Sundar might know more about that. So Sundar, thank you. We are delighted to have you here with us. I'm going to jump right in and speak about some recent developments. And there's been a lot of talk in recent weeks of the metaverse after Facebook changed its name to Meta, and the metaverse, of course, seems straight out of science fiction. And it looks like, I'm still a little vague in my head as to what it means, like I'm sure lots of people are. But it looks to me that it's a combination of AI and AR, artificial intelligence and augmented reality. Can you tell us a bit more about it? And can you also tell us what Google sees in store for this future we're all moving towards, which has a mix of the virtual, a mix of the real, a mix of machine intelligence, a mix of human intelligence? What does it look like?
Well, Sukumar, first of all, pleasure to be with you, and great to be part of the Leadership Summit. It's a good question. Let me answer it from how, as Google, we think about computing evolving. We've always obviously been deeply involved in computing. Android powers over 3 billion devices, and mobile phones are still at the heart of how people primarily access computing. But it's always natural to me over time, rather than people adapting to computers and phones, over time computing will adapt more naturally to people. So which means you want people to be able to interact more naturally, like the way you see things and speak. All of that will play out in computing as well. So I think there's a natural way computing will be more immersive and ambient. It'll be there when you need it, not always as a black rectangle in front of you, right? And a part of that future is going to be AR. And today you have, basic elements of AR, maybe when you're wearing a watch, or as people are trying glasses with overlaid information. But I think over time, it'll be, as we make progress, it'll be more natural, and it won't interfere with you interacting with the real world. That's one of the promises of AR. But at times when you want to be immersive, it'll allow you to do that as well. And to do all that, I think, AI is going to play a big part, as you said. And part of the reason, for example, when we think for that future, this is why we build things like Google Lens, being able to, point your computer at something, and then it understand the world and answer back. So, the recent announcement we made with Lambda at Google I/O last year is an example of, really building a radically better conversational interface. All of that will end up playing an important role in the future of computing. But that's how we think about it. We'll drive computing forward. As part of that, I think different companies will build different things in that future world. And that's how I see, I think about what we as a company are doing. And, it's exciting to think about it.
Has the pandemic sort of accelerated this process, as it accelerated our acceptance of living virtually, working virtually, collaborating virtually, and does that sort of speed up this whole move towards a reality where a lot of things that were previously offline, you're open to doing it online? I mean, everyone knew that people could work virtually, but I don't think anyone thought it could be done at this scale.
I mean, absolutely. I think definitely the trends. I mean, there is a massive adjustment that has happened, and I think a lot of it is going to stay. One way to look at it is, for example, in the US, when I talk to local hospitals here, the telehealth visits were less than 2 to 3% of the total visits pre-pandemic. It obviously spiked all the way to 70-80% during the pandemic, but it's not going to return to 3%. There's many aspects of it which are here to stay. So you look at that and you realize you've accelerated a few years of transition in a short time frame. So people have many things like what we are doing right now and virtually. I do think there is a definite acceleration, but when it comes to the kind of trends we are talking about, some of it is constrained by computing and how you can get form factors designed in a way that it's natural for people. So there are some hard limitations which will take some time too. But I think users are adapting, and I think that will help with some of this evolution as well.
One of the other new things that we've heard a lot about is Web3, right? And which NFTs and crypto and everything else, and now people believe that Web3 could have greater applications in areas like recruitment, and that we've probably just scratched the surface. Again. My knowledge of this is extremely sketchy, and I have a feeling that a lot of people are still trying to get their hands around what Web3 is, what it means, and how it will change things. So can you please explain this whole Web3 buzz that's going around?
Well, I mean, it's all early and nascent, and it's exciting. Well, let me put it this way. I've always, been a fan of the web, and a lot of Google was built on the open web, and the web has gone through very exciting phases before. When we went from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, a lot of it was the web shifting from content to rich, interactive applications on the web, and that's what made things like Google Maps or Flickr or possible on the web. And to me, Web 3 is early, but I think there is excitement around distributed architecture, maybe a decentralized architecture, payments built in more natively into the web, and a set of interesting ideas like that. But the web is a community, so at the end of the day, the web is going to evolve, and what that evolution is, is not. It's by the people who are actually building the web and contributing to the web. So you'll have to wait for it to play out. I always watch it with wonder, and I'm excited anytime the web is trying to evolve. It's a fascinating moment, and as a company, we think about how do we adapt, how can we contribute to it, and so that's the lens with which I look at it.
Someone I was speaking to the other day, again to try and understand what Web3 was, in the course of the conversation, mentioned that. It's like your own private patch of the internet, where and that as a result, it could be safer, it could be more private, and you could pretty much define the rules there. Do you think that's an accurate way of looking at it, or at least one facet of it?
Look, I think it's too nascent for me to exactly specifically discuss how it'll turn out, but I think there are various proposals out there, and I think some of the exciting aspects of decentralization is, being able to, get to an architecture like what you're talking about. We have elements of privacy today. So when you have encrypted communications, right, that's a way of privacy on the web, and the web supports protocols like encryption, and so standards like encryption. And so I think you will see evolution along multiple dimensions. But to me, it's a democratic evolution of ideas, and out of which a future web will emerge. And that's what will be exciting to see.
At Alphabet, what are you most excited about? What are the things you're working on that you say, like, this is really going to change the world?
About 5 years ago, I set the company on an AI first approach. I felt we are at a point of inflection around AI, and it's one of the most profound technologies we are building, and it will literally go on to transform everything we do. So we have tried hard to both build AI in a cutting edge way, actually deploy it in our products, be it search or maps, to build more helpful features. And I think the potential there is immense, and we see it across areas. So in healthcare, I think we will be able to better and earlier detect cancer, as an example. As DeepMind has shown with AlphaFold, we can accelerate drug discovery over time by better modeling protein structures. So I find, AI is very profound and something transformational across everything we do. But again, we are very early. And so that, when I take a long-term outlook, I want to make sure as a company, I've always prided on the deep approach to technology we have. And that's something we are doing. I'm also excited that through Google Cloud, we're bringing it to all companies in the world and providing APIs. So I think it's not just about transforming how our products work, but it's really helping other industries transform. So it's a big trend I'm excited by as well. And as part of that, we earlier talked about how it will end up playing an important role in the future of computing, ambient computing, AR. And so we are interested in building out that experience. And I would say in a time frame beyond that, we are barely scratching the surface of areas like quantum computing. And Google is again leading the way in quantum computing, and it'll take time, but it again opens up entire new potential set of applications which classical computing cannot solve. So these are all some of the trends I'm very excited by.
In India, on Diwali Day, your collaboration with Reliance for that phone, the new phone that you've launched with a made for India operating system, launched. And how do you see this market evolving? And what are the kind of prospects you see for a product like this?
Look, I'm very excited. For me, what that effort and our partnership with Reliance Jio in this particular case, you mentioned the pandemic, and that digital shift. We are seeing more people accessing computing, trying to get mobile phones, and many of them are still on feature phones, and we are trying to design a high quality smartphone at affordable price points, but in a way that's localized for the needs of Indian market, right? And that's why it's a deep effort, right? We are not taking Android assets. We are investing in Android, for example, investing in AI to do translation better, bringing Google Lens so that people can, and Google Voice so that people can actually interact with the device in many languages in an easier way. So we're designing something for the local market in partnership with Reliance, who deeply understands the market too. And we are trying to push the boundaries there. In my long experience, anytime you work on something like this, it takes time to play out, but the impact ends up being, big, because it profoundly impacts the ability for many people to get access to computing and to this digital journey. And, in that way, I think it's an exciting part of the Digital India vision and will end up being an accelerant for it over time. But it's the first step in that process, and couldn't be more excited. We have a phone out, and we'll continue iterating and building.
What are the other new things you're looking at in India? What do you want to try out here? Where do you see big opportunities here?
India's, for a few years, I had felt coming to India, whenever I would meet entrepreneurs there, I could see the potential of the startup ecosystem and what's possible in India. And, it's heartening to see the number of startups now which are, proving themselves on a global stage, and, and the unicorns that are getting created. So it's an exciting time in India. For us, I want to help in a few ways. Last year, we committed, $10 billion to the India Digitization Fund. And as part of that, we want to support companies in India, solving newer things. We want to provide them with AI and technologies and, platforms so that they can scale up their ideas and reach more users. A lot of our services would allow, people to export outside of India as well. So we are investing in, foundational infrastructure like that. Third, I view India as a place over time we will be able to build things and take it globally. The first example of that for us was Google Pay. Looking at what had happened in India with UPI, understanding India is going to be ahead of everyone else in digital payments. We invested in Google Pay, and the foundation of that app and experience is what is making its way to our other markets around the world. And so both I'm excited about building for India first, and also building in India to solve problems globally as well. And I think that's an exciting new phase. But above all, I would say what we do will end up being a small portion compared to the scale of the innovation I see in India across the ecosystem. And I think we will play a strong enabling role, be it through Google Cloud, be it through the AI technologies we provide, or be it towards expanding Android and supporting the market with initiatives like the GeoPhone.
Regulation is one area where there's been it's an evolving space, much like many of the other things, and I think as technology companies such as your company Alphabet has evolved, I think there have been lots of issues with many governments around the world in it, because I just think that they have a certain regulatory regime, and I think the regime needs to evolve with the times. And this results in a lot of back and forth. How do you see the evolving regulatory regime? It must be reasonably difficult, let's say, for a company like Alphabet, because you have multiple regulatory regimes around the world, and there is no one standard that, or is there a standard? I know the EU has a standard, which is a fairly decent standard, but how does it work for you?
Look, it's an important moment. I think as tech has scaled up and tech is touching people's lives in a deeper way, it's natural that there needs to be rules of the road, and so I think it's a natural part of the process. And I think it makes sense to me that countries, think about the concerns of its own citizens and wants regulations to make sure it works well for their people. And so I think all of that makes sense to me. Through it all, it's important to understand we have this amazingly wonderful thing, which is a free and open internet, which helps connect the world in a global way and creates all the opportunities we see. And I think that's the balance with which we need to engage and work through. I think where we can find regulations which helps support the open exchange of ideas, the way the internet works today, is obviously ideal. But it makes sense that countries have, democratic countries have, are thinking through what makes sense for their country, with citizens empowered to do that. And so, you both are important, and I think the balance is important. You're right. As a large company, we deal with many countries around the world. I view it as an important role for Google to be local and engage in every country with the best interest of the country too. And so I think that's an important principle with which I approach this. But as part of that, where we can encourage commonality, we strive to do that. So if you take privacy, for example, in GDPR, there's a lot of strong foundations, and hopefully, that can be a good starting point for many countries around the world. And so we advocate for that, and as an example. But we are deeply committed to engaging in every country locally, complying with local laws, and so it's a part of the process we need to engage through, and I'm committed to doing that well.
I'm just going to take a step back and look at it in a slightly broader way. Traditionally, data and information and the use and the control, for want of a better word, of data and information has been the purview of the state traditionally, even in democracies. And increasingly, you have a lot of large technology companies which deal in lots of data and deal in lots of information, and who have the ability to be the sort of gatekeepers to this thing. So the relationship between these two is, to my mind, bound to be antagonistic. So how do you find a sort of a middle path in this?
I think, look, at the end of the day, people will demand certain experiences. Companies will, many companies in a country also want to participate in the global export economy, right? You're not only operating within the context of your country. So there are natural forces which will pull in an interoperable way. You're right, and governments want sovereignty over things that affect the lives of their citizens, and so I think the conversation. I mean, it's tough to answer it in abstract. I think these things will evolve depending on what the underlying use cases are, how important it is, and over time. So to give an example, through COVID, the fact that data from Israel around vaccine efficacy getting shared with rest of the world, all that is helpful, right? And so you have to, but at the same time, health data is exceptionally important. The privacy of it is sacrosanct. But you have to figure out ways and frameworks for all of this to work together, right? But you can solve it in the context of that specific issue. So I think over time, regulations need to take into account the industries, the purpose of what they're trying to solve, and there's no one answer. You're rightfully calling out that there will be tensions through a process like this, but that makes sense. That's natural. But I think over time, we have to work to find common answers.
You've repeatedly used the term open internet, and there are times when the need for this balance, as you said, and I remember that over the summer when India released its own rules, guidelines for internet companies, you again emphasized that the free and open internet is foundational to your company, and that you have to strike a balance between that and the evolving regulatory regime. But there are times when these two seem to be at odds, right? I mean, and at which point, what do you do, or do you go case by case?
Look, I mean, we approach it. We're going to approach it constructively, and as I said, we want to approach it with the view of making sure the work we are doing is helpful to the people in the context of the country in which we operate, and that's a principle with which we will approach these things. And I think just even in India, there are Indian companies. I talked about the unicorns emerging over time. I expect many of them to be able to scale up and tap into markets and grow, on the internet, and that's what some of the benefits of the open internet provides. And so I think it's important to think about it holistically, and and that's part of how a country has to think about its regulations.
On the issue of regulation, to drill down to specifics, there's been a lot of talk of regulating user engagement, the kind of content, the kind of things that people engage with online using engagement-based algorithms. And the idea is to, let's say, prevent the spread of conspiracy theories. And you have a few. You have a few in my country. You have a few in your country, right? I mean, it's everywhere. A lot of companies have faced issues with this. I mean, your own YouTube has also faced some issues related to this. what's your view on engagement-based algorithms? Do you think you need to sort of refine them? This is a constant process where you make sure that conspiracy theories, fake information are not amplified?
This is at the foundation of what we do as a company. This is our mission to organize the world's information. This is what we do in search constantly. On a given day, 15% of queries we have never seen before, right? And so figuring out how to elevate high quality information is what we've been doing as a company for the past 23 years, and it's the same principles we've brought to YouTube. And so, and again, it is so dynamic and so changing fast. None of us had any notion of COVID, 2 years ago. To adapt to COVID, and the way we approach it is take a vertical like that, consult with experts, develop new policies. In many cases, we elevate information for example, in a given country, we elevate information from local health authorities, from journalistic organizations. These are all ways by which we approach an area like this. We've added a lot of transparency. We publish, violated view rates in YouTube. And so, we give transparency. I think countries can pass legislation, both asking for more transparency, making sure we can respond to users. There is an accountability mechanism. These are all interesting ideas and, can be evolved. But I would be careful about, the inherent dynamic nature of this and how fast it's evolving at an internet scale. Companies need the flexibility to be able to adapt and move with certainty and make decisions to tackle problems like this as well. So I think it's an important area, to keep looking at over time.
Privacy, and it's an issue that keeps coming up both at the level of individuals and at the level of governments. And do you think there are misunderstood perceptions about privacy? Do you think there are any fallacies about privacy? And how do you deal with them?
Well, privacy is foundational, and it kind of underlies all our approach. We've always viewed as we are stewards of users' data. The data belongs to people, and we want to take care of it on their behalf. And when you look at products like Gmail, and we've been doing it. We work so hard to protect user data in products like that. I think I wouldn't say it's an important area. I wouldn't say it's misunderstood. Overwhelmingly, people's privacy expectations are constantly evolving. And all of us need to challenge ourselves to provide people with the experiences they are seeking for while enhancing privacy. So, and we've been working hard on techniques like that. And so, for example, in the Google keyboard on your Android phones, we use a technique called federated learning, whereby, we compute models locally on the device and update a global model without any raw data actually leaving your device. But we can improve, typing suggestions for everyone globally. These are all examples of privacy-preserving techniques. So I wouldn't say there is misperception, but I think what is counterintuitive is over time, AI will help you give more privacy because we can do more with less data. Privacy is actually hard to engineer for. You have to program privacy in a complex way. So over time, I think it'll get easier, to improve privacy. I think it's important. Users will demand it, and I think the bar will keep going up. And so, as companies, I think you have to dig deep to make sure you're doing, you're innovating on privacy-preserving approaches.
Companies such as yours are, you deal with billions of consumers, right? And there is a view that you have extremely good and extremely sophisticated information on how people react to circumstances, people react to products, people react to situations, and that this knowledge needs to be opened up for better academic understanding of how societies are evolving. And you know that, popular culture, the minute people start writing fiction about you, and there have been quite a few books out, right? And I don't know whether you've read Dave Eggers, and he has a new book out. What is Google's stand on this? Do you think it makes sense to share this kind of information? Would you be open to doing it? Because I think it would provide, let's say, a fascinating view of how society is evolving. Because companies like yours, and I don't know whether you'll agree with me when I say this, but you actually have, you shape the evolution that we are seeing around us in society.
Well, look, part of the reason, as a company, we do provide data and API. I mean, Google Trends is an important API we provide. As part of sustainability, we are working with 500 cities around the world to help give data insights to them about where emissions are occurring. Through COVID, we launched community mobility reports so that local governments had a sense of how people are moving about and can develop policies on that. We've always believed in the power of engaging, giving data where helpful, and it's something we will continue to do. Even when we work on areas like AI, we publish. We both participate in open source. We deploy many open source projects. We publish and collaborate closely with academic organizations, right? And we are one of the leading research publishers on AI. And I think that is important. But I think, governments themselves, one of the power of cloud and AI is, governments have access to more data than anyone else in an important way. Take traffic in cities, using that to better make traffic flow and cut down on pollution. That's an example of governments being able to use data in a way no one else can. Healthcare is another area. Governments have access to more data. The role I see there is providing technology platforms, tools, and solutions to help governments do that. So I agree with the premise of the question that data is an important way by which you can get insights and tackle new problems. And where we can be enablers of that, we want to, and that's how we approach it.
You announced last year that Google plans to transition to 24/7 carbon-free power by 2030. Can you share some details on this with us?
No, I'm very, very excited that we are working on, what is a moonshot, and there is no more urgent issue for us to solve together as humanity than climate change. And I was excited to see more momentum coming out of COP26, and it is something which affects all of us together. So it's a shared journey and a shared problem to solve. It is, for me personally, it's an area where I want to spend the company's time on. I think over time, it'll be a big opportunity as well. Google we've been carbon neutral since 2007. And for the past many years, we've matched all our energy consumption with renewable energy. But we are now trying to take that next step, which is to operate 24/7 carbon-free. That means every email you send or a YouTube video you watch uses no carbon in that process. And to do that, wind and solar alone won't be enough. We are investing in new technologies like geothermal. Over time, we'll be looking at emerging technologies, be it nuclear, be it carbon capture. So we are evaluating everything, and to solve it around the world on a 24/7 basis will force us to invest in R&D and catalyze new projects locally in countries. And so we did this with wind and solar early on. We invested in completely new projects at the earliest stage of the cost curve, and so contributed to it. I want to do the same for the next decade ahead. AI, which I spoke about, itself will play a foundational role in helping us develop newer solutions. So it is beyond our core products, it's the moonshot I'm most excited by, and something I'm deeply committed to, deploying Google's resources to help solve the problem.
You've been at Google for 17 years now, and it's clearly evolved in this period. Search, mail, advertising, the whole shift to mobile OS. How has the company changed in this time? How does it see itself now? As its mission changed, as the way it looks at things changed?
I'll talk about a few things which I think haven't changed and what has changed. And you mentioned the mission. I feel fortunate that our mission feels as timeless as ever. You asked many important questions about information quality, misinformation, organizing information, in a way that works for people, continues to be our defining mission and moonshot. And so I feel fortunate, that it's timeless. The company, the first thing that struck me about the company when I joined the company was how optimistic it was. At Google, you had an idea, everyone thinks about how to make that idea better, and they want to help you solve it. I still feel that today, walking around, and that it's what allows us to innovate. That hasn't changed. Our belief that by investing deeply in technology and R&D and applying it, you can do amazing things hasn't changed. We've invested $100 billion in R&D in just the past 5 years alone. And I get a lot of pride in knowing that we are doing deep foundational technology work. So all that hasn't changed. What has changed, obviously, is the scale of the company. With scale comes, you have the opportunity to be long-term focused and tackle bigger problems. There's a reason we can take on a problem like being 24/7 carbon-free. And so, it allows you to have new opportunities. It also, you have challenges in terms of being able to engage and explain and move nimbly at the same speed as you did 20 years ago. So those are all the things you have to work hard. Scale gives you more opportunity. It also creates complexity. And so tackling that is what changes, and what, I spend a lot of time making sure we can continue to do that well.
General Electric got broken up, right? Or is in the process of getting broken up. And there was a time when the US industrial landscape was dominated by conglomerates, and everyone thought conglomerates was the way to go. And there is a view that companies such as Alphabet are the new conglomerates. And do you see any parallels? Do you see any learnings?
I think at a high level, first of all, we don't operate as a conglomerate. We are deeply investing in technology and building products. But I think the bigger point you're making is, in technology, you have to earn your success every year. The pace of change. In fact, at any given time, you go back and look 20 years ago and see the successful companies. It takes a lot for a company to stay at that level over a period of time. And I look at the landscape. There is more opportunity than ever before. There is more competition than ever before. It's become easier to start newer companies than ever before. And innovation is happening at a rapid pace. And so as a company, I think, every year we think about digging deep and making sure we are building things which are helpful to people, true to our mission, and doing it in a differentiated way. And that's how you earn success every year. And I think that will always be true, particularly in technology. And, so I think, it's what we strive to do on an ongoing basis.
We've spoken about what next for Google. We've spoken about what next for Alphabet. We've spoken about what next for the internet, for India. What next for Sundar Pichai?
I feel it's a privilege to be, leading a company which has the chance to impact the lives of so many people. And, I get a lot of joy and energy from it. Just the last conversation around climate change and the chance for Google to make a lasting impact there alone, gets me up every morning, and I couldn't be more excited by it.
Sundar Pichai, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A vision becomes a milestone when it helps make our lives richer with love and laughter. When it helps make a cleaner, smarter, and a more beautiful planet. So that you can set off on joyous new journeys and adventures. Building stronger bonds and bridging impossible distances, which take you from the ever new to the forever beautiful. Opening up vistas and windows to a vibrant new world. A vision becomes a milestone when it touches millions of lives. Aditya Birla Group, big in your life.
We made a promise to be at the forefront.
Welcome back. If the last session told you all about what the future looks like when it comes to technology, then our next session should give you an idea of the role startups who use that technology to boost their business. Our speakers are mobile payment company Mobikwik's co-founder Upasana Taku and Sequoia Capital's Rajan Anandan, who also used to be the head of Google in India. Digital payments have seen a revolution since 2016 when demonetization provided the push that they needed. So where will the next revolution come from? What kind of startups can we expect? It's over to Shruti Mishra.
Thank you so much, Sunetra, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 19th Hindustan Times Leadership Summit. I'm Shruti Mishra. Now, this session is very close to my heart. After 13 years of covering India's startup ecosystem, I can say with conviction that 2021 is turning out to be quite a dream run for the Indian startup ecosystem. Against a cumulative number of 33 unicorns from 2011 to 2020, 2021 has already seen the emergence of 41 unicorns or billion-dollar value companies, and we still have a full month to go for the year to end. 2021 has also turned into a year where a record number of startups hit the public markets, from Zomato to Paytm, Nykaa, Policy Bazaar, and they just keep coming. To talk about the journey from startup to IPO, the debate between price and valuation, profit or growth for investors and founders and entrepreneurs, joining me now are Upasana Taku, co-founder and director of Mobikwik, and Rajan Anandan, managing director of Sequoia Capital. Upasana and Rajan, welcome to this session. Rajan, let me first start with you. It has been the year of IPOs for startups in India, and every new listing has been a leader in their space, with Zomato, Nykaa, Policy Bazaar, Paytm, and now in the pipeline are Delivery, PharmEasy, Ola, Oyo, Mobikwik. Rajan, do you feel that how ready are Indian tech companies of going public now more than ever before?
Yeah, I think first of all, thanks for having us. It's great to be here. Look, I think the Indian startup ecosystem has been over a decade in the making, right? So and in many ways, the time has come, for us to actually start seeing at least some set of exits, right? I mean, obviously we've probably, the number of IPOs in India, tech IPOs in India, have surprised all of us. But the reality is, look, this has been a long time in the making. If you go back to 2011, which was exactly 10 years ago, we had 0 unicorns, right? 2015, we only had 4 unicorns. And then this year, I don't know what the latest number is, because there seems to be a new unicorn minted every couple of days. I think we have over 40 unicorns just in this year. So I think it's been a long time in the making. And in terms of are companies really ready to go public? I think the real test of that is going to be in a few years, right? Obviously, we are seeing a large number of very successful IPOs, and that's the first sign, right, where the public markets are actually saying that these are companies that should be valued at the way that they're valued. And as you said, many of the companies that are going public today are market leaders. But the real test, I mean, it's, going public is really, Shruti, a marker, right? It's just one of the milestones in the journey to building an enduring company, right? So if you think about idea to IPO and beyond, the beyond part is pretty important, right? Because to be a truly enduring company, whether it's a Google or a Facebook or an Amazon, or if you look at India, or TCS or an HDFC Bank or the many other enduring companies that you have, the real question is going to be what's going to happen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Yeah. So if you ask me which of these companies, were they ready or not? I think we can look back in 2025 and the answer will be pretty clear, right? The companies that continue to be very successful, continue to build, continue to grow, and continue to be market leaders, I think those were the ones that were ready, and maybe the others that went public weren't ready, right? So it's like everything else in time, everything else in life, time tells you the answers, and this is one where I think 4 or 5 years from now we will know.
All right, Rajan. So we'll have to wait and watch. But, which IPOs of 2021 have really excited you the most? We've got, from food delivery Zomato to new age commerce logistics. We've got Z2C to Policy Bazaar that brought, order to a highly segmented market. Which IPO excited you the most?
Look, I think I'm excited by all technology companies. Upasana is here from Mobikwik. Super excited about Mobikwik. I think all of them had been very, very interesting, right? So just in Sequoia Capital, India, Shruti, we've had 8 IPOs this year, right? So that started the year with Indigo, which is a very, very interesting company. Most recently it was Go Colors last week, and then in between we've had companies like Freshworks that went public on Nasdaq, Truecaller that went public in Europe, Appier that went public in Japan, and Zomato that went public here, right? So we've had just within Sequoia Capital India, Shruti, we've had 8 IPOs this year already, and then we have many more in the pipeline. But to ask me, which one is the favorite one, that's sort of like saying, hey, look, which of your children is your most favorite one, right? You just can't. You like them all, you love them all, and I would say, I think I'm a big fan of all our founders who are building extraordinary companies.
All right. Clearly, Sequoia has had a wonderful year. Upasana, let me now quickly come to you. And we were talking about IPOs. You've spoken about an IPO for a while now. How has the experience been? What has been the challenges?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me here today. Great to be on this session in August company. And I must thank Rajan, because Sequoia Capital has been our first partner from IPO, from idea to growth to IPO and beyond. So we do really believe that this year and the year coming forward is going to create a new story for tech startups in India, and hopefully a very positive story for many more to follow. So the journey has been quite interesting. I think there is a lot of process involved, but my key learning from the IPO preparation has been that the lens that private investors versus public market investors have a slightly different lens. Okay. Investors in the capital markets are looking for companies where the business model is very clear. The financial performance has been demonstrated year over year for at least 2-3 good years. And there is a clear path to profitability. And I think having been following a sustainable growth strategy already for the last 4-5 years, I think it was my pleasure to bring that story to the market, to the investors. I think one thing though is common between private markets and public markets. It is still a very, very male-centric ecosystem. And yes. I can tell you that a leader, a founder from a tech company, I think it is going to become easier as we go forward. So I do hope that there will be more women-led companies that come to the capital markets.
Absolutely. I was about to come to your journey, but one very quick question about the IPO. If you can give us a sense of what the market can now expect, will you be relooking valuation and pricing?
Well, I think that many companies are going to come to the markets in 22. I think that markets are markets, so we have to respect the markets. But I do believe that there will be, a flurry of startups coming to the market, and I think the investors will provide the right valuation to the right companies. I think there are all kinds of different companies coming to the market, and I think, like they say, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So valuation and the success on the capital markets will also be in the hands of investors for every single company.
All right, I just mentioned, you're one of the few women-led startups going for an IPO. You're a trailblazer. How has the journey been for you? And Upasana, why are there not enough women-led startup founders?
Ooh, that's a big question. So I think firstly, just for any startup founder, I think that it's a very exhilarating journey. Thinking of doing a startup, coming up with the idea, getting the team, and it's a completely different experience. For me, it has been one of the most exhilarating life experiences. I think the only other experience I can say is comparable is many years ago, I was riding up to Changla Pass in Ladakh on the way to Pangong. And there was a downpour of rain, and a bunch of a dozen or more bikers were coming down and saying, don't go forward. I mean, that is what it is. The startup journey is like dozens of people telling you to turn back. But despite all of that, you keep going forward. So building Mobikwik has been like that for me. Against all odds, Bipin and I decided that doing a digital wallet in 2009. In 2009, imagine the whole world would have thought we are crazy because India was a completely cash-driven economy at that time. But see, lo and behold, today India has 250, 300 million digitally paying users. And if I could say, 100 million or more are on our platform, and companies are raising $100, $200 million every year. And we have raised $100 million and spent that in a decade. So I think that there are opportunities for founders, to set their vision and build their company to their liking.
Yeah.
And coming to the woman angle, I think it's not been easy. I think I have been construed as being the EA, the HR manager, the receptionist, the salesperson, everything else, except the founder of a tech company. And I think after you reach a certain scale, that possibly changes. But I think overcoming all of that requires sort of a lot of grit and perseverance. And I think you break quite a few ceilings doing that. And I hope that is going to inspire many more, women to follow the path. If I could just take one more sec here, I do believe that there are quite a few new initiatives coming that are helping women founders to come forward. And I truly believe they need all the help, because if in order to be successful as a founder, as a male, if I have to work, let's say 1.5x or 2x, as a woman, I have to work 4x harder. I have things to do at home, and I have things to do to work very hard, even in the workforce. And I think it's not easy. So many women actually tend to give up. And I think I don't want women to give up. So I want more surge initiatives, Rajan, and I want many more venture capital firms to do spark women initiatives so that we see many more women in the ecosystem. This has been a positive year. We spoke about 40 unicorns, 4 women-led unicorns this year in India. So yay, we are making progress.
Absolutely. And Rajan is all smiling, and he completely agrees to that. But this is and Upasana, clearly you've shown a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance. Mobikwik is a success story. But let me quickly move on to the other topic, which is very close to Rajan. We were talking IPOs, and there is so much buzz on the domestic exchanges. Will international listing be key for the Indian startup ecosystem, Rajan? And how critical is it for Indian companies to list on international exchanges, especially for SaaS businesses who have a global consumer?
Yeah, I think Indian startups being able to list directly on international exchanges is very, very critical. This was approved by cabinet, I think, last year. So we are hoping that in the next budget, Shruti, that these goes through. Follow through and executing and landing policies that are announced by the government is very important. So we are all very hopeful that this will happen in the next budget. Look, so I think, at the end of the day, Shruti, it's really about giving Indian entrepreneurs, right, to list where they think is most appropriate. Now, the reality is most Indian entrepreneurs will actually list on the Indian exchanges, right? If you're an Indian brand, this is your business, you're your consumer base, or if you're a B2C or a B2B business, and your market is here, and all your teams are here, your talent is here, your customers are here, it may absolutely make sense to list on the Indian exchanges, right? So you look at a company like a Zomato or a Policy Bazaar. I mean, these companies do have some presence outside of India, but they're largely Indian companies, meaning they're India-focused companies, right? So our view is that a very large number of companies will end up listing in India. However, there is a subset of companies, right, that are going to be global from day zero, and a large part of their end markets are going to be outside of India, right? So let's say if 70-80% of your revenue is coming from the US, then we do think for a company like that, and you happen to be a SaaS company where the SaaS investing ecosystem is very, very deep, right? The public market SaaS ecosystem in the US, for instance, is very, very deep. It may make more sense for you to list on NASDAQ, right? So we saw what happened with Freshworks. Freshworks is an example of a company like that, right? Where $400 million plus of revenue, almost all of it comes outside of India. The US is by far their most important market, and listing on that exchange actually makes sure the company is fairly valued, but also gives the company tremendous brand leverage. Right. And so that's sort of how we think about it, is at the end of the day, it's about giving our entrepreneurs the option to list where they think is most appropriate. Right. And we should let the entrepreneurs decide. And I think what we'll find, much like in every other market that has actually allowed international direct listings, is that most of them will actually end up listing, or most of our entrepreneurs will end up listing in the domestic exchanges. So super critical, and we are hoping that the government will follow through and actually take this change to its natural conclusion.
Well, fingers crossed, and we'll wait for the 2022 to really see that happen. Rajan, we spoke about the growth of unicorns. We spoke about how the year has already seen over 40 unicorns, saw a record amount of funding this year. Crazy valuations are chasing startups. Despite no signs of profitability, are valuations overheated in early stages with so much capital chasing pre-revenue startups? Is this a bubble? And if not, what is the underlying asset you see?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So firstly, I think it's important, Shruti, to keep in mind that we have cycles, okay? We are now at the very top end of the cycle, right? Every time we sort of say we are at the peak of the cycle, we go even higher. So, I don't say peak of the cycle anymore because, but look, we are definitely at the high part of the cycle, right? And cycles turn, right? So when the cycle turns, then we're going to go through a period where it's not going to be like this at all. It's going to be very difficult to raise capital. Valuations are going to get adjusted.
Can I say something?
And by the way, that happens in public markets and it happens in private markets, right? So there's some background noise. I don't know whether you can hear the background noise. But anyways,
Rajan, there's some other. I think there's some. Go ahead, I can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So basically, so it happens in public markets, it happens in private markets, and so so basically, it's not just in private markets, right? You look at the public markets; they've been exuberant.
So this is what she sent on Sunday. Like in Kal, she rescheduled it.
Okay.
So can I forward this to you?
Yes, please. Audio overlap happening if the tech team could resolve that. We can hear on the voice. I think. Yes, continue, Rajan. I think.
Yeah. So I think basically we should expect that at some point there will be a correction where we'll have the next part of the cycle, and that part of the cycle, valuations will adjust. fundraising will become very difficult. And in many ways, when I said like we will know 4 or 5 years from now, right? Which of these IPOs were terrific IPOs? That's the reason I say that, because when markets turn and when things turn, and as Upasana said, public market investors have very different expectations of how companies should perform. That's when we'll know. So it's a long way of saying, look, it is what it is today, but what I can tell you is it's not going to be this way for very long. Now, what I don't know is how long is very long. Is it 2 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? I don't know. But there will be a different part of the cycle. And in that part of the cycle, it'll look very, very different, right? So I think what founders should do is, if they're able to raise capital and they think they need the capital, they should raise it. But they should be very, very prudent about how they spend it, right? I think Upasana talked about the journey of Mobikwik. I mean, it's extraordinary that they built this company on $100 million, because as she says, lots of companies are raising hundreds of millions of dollars today. That's okay, because you can raise the capital, but what's not okay is to spend it all. Because when the market turns, many of them will not be able to raise the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it is a very exuberant market today. Now, part of that is justified, Shruti, because our ecosystem is literally, orders of magnitude deeper than it used to be, right? We have 600 million internet users, 500 million daily connected users. A company like Byju's is 10,000 crores of revenue, which shows the depth of the edtech market and so on and so forth, right? Our payments is, fully mainstreamed. Upasana talked about this 300 million, Indians that are paying with their, e-commerce has been mainstreamed and so on and so forth. So the markets are much, much deeper. So in that context, right, companies should be much more valuable. But in terms of, where we are, it really is a function of where we are in the cycle.
Sure. So, interesting. And picking up from what Rajan said, Upasana, the question is for you. Do you believe Indian startups are now focusing on unit economics and profitability more than ever before? We've seen how the pandemic has forced businesses to relook at their books and cut the fat.
So, hey, Shruti, I think last year when we were in the heat of COVID, I think many companies did take capital efficiency very seriously, perhaps, in the first time in the last 5 years. And like Rajan said, I think last time I saw this cycle was in the 2015 time frame where, companies focused on cost efficiency. But overall, I don't really think so. I think that money is very easily accessible right now in the markets. And so many companies are focused on growth metrics, as they should be. But I do think that the smart ones, and there are fewer, who have this, growth strategy where you are investing money in growing your platform, but you know how you're going to control your variable costs. When you need, you can switch off, the tap very quickly. I don't see too many companies doing that, actually. And I do encourage many founders to think about it like that. So you focus on strong growth, but you also focus on at least contribution margin or unit economic profitability, because, truly speaking, that's the only real way to build a business. Eventually, you have to get the company to profitability. So if you build it close to unit economic profitability while even being a high growth company, I think that could be a better model that many more companies from the tech ecosystem can adopt going forward.
All right. So stay prudent and focus on profitability. Rajan, coming back to you, we've seen a lot of exits. Exits make a market attractive for risk investors. Is the latest boom in funding also due to a lot of unicorns realistically looking to go public? And will investors also see exits from IPOs more than M&As, which has been the trajectory so far? Your view on this?
Sorry, Shruti, what's the question? I missed that.
No problem. I'll just repeat myself. So basically, we've seen a lot of exits, Rajan, and that definitely exists, make a market attractive for risk investors. Do you feel that the latest boom in funding is also due to a lot of unicorns realistically looking to go public? And will investors see exits from IPOs more than M&As now, which has been the trajectory so far?
Yeah, I think Shruti, the Indian startup ecosystem has had very few exits. Until 2021, right? We've had virtually very few, like you can count on one hand the number of companies that have gone public in the last tech startups that have gone public in India, right? So Make My Trip, India, and a few others, right? So until 2021, there were virtually no IPOs. And then if you look at large strategic exits, really, there weren't that many. There was Flipkart, Walmart, and sort of the list ends there. And then there were much smaller ones, right? So we do believe, Shruti, that Indian startup ecosystem, most exits will be in the IPO route for some time to come, right? And the reason is because, Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc., haven't really become as acquisitive here, and we still don't have as many companies like Byju's, right? So if you look at India's most active acquirer today, within the startup sort of decacorns and unicorns, it's really Byju's, right? Byju's has become very, very active. But I think, let's say 5 or 10 years from now, when we have many dozen decacorns, and then, you start having companies that are valued at 50 billion, 100 billion, 200 billion, those companies then tend to have the currency, right? The equity currency to go out and make sizable acquisitions. So at least our view is that for the next 5, possibly even 10 years, IPOs will really be the way in which most Indian startups will see large exits. I don't mean the 50, 100, 200 million dollar type acquisitions. I think we'll see a large number of those. But companies being bought for $1, $2, $3 billion, we think that's a few years away.
Okay. Upasana, do you agree with Rajan on this? And will we see more of an IPO-centric market in India? For instance, in China, you don't see as much M&A compared to the US. You see a lot more IPOs, and it's a function of a rapidly scaling ecosystem. So do you agree with Rajan here?
Well, actually, I'm not sure. I don't think I may agree with him. But one thing he is right on is that we've not had exits period. M&A or IPO, tech sector in India has not had too many exits. And, while we are calling it the year of the IPOs, I mean, I can count the 4 tech IPOs on my fingers. It's Zomato, Nykaa, Policybazaar, and Paytm. And we all know the names, right? And while that's a great number, I mean, just contrast them with the number of startups in the ecosystem. So as a percentage, it will still be a very, very small number. And while I would like most Indian startups to go the IPO route and IPO in India, I think that the number of companies that will be able to meet the benchmark in terms of disciplined action, moving towards a clear financial performance, independent board. I think that maybe in the next few years, we will see many more companies working in that direction. So while right now there is a huge flurry because of, the cycle, the upward cycle in the capital markets, I do believe that this can become a good exit path, but I think we will need companies to mature and get to that level of, disciplined process, financial discipline and all of that before we can see, like dozens and dozens of IPOs every single year from the tech space.
All right. Rajan, let me, shift focus to Surge now. What are the kind of conversations you're having with startups as they aim to scale? If you could take us through the trends that you can predict for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Surge is Sequoia's, early stage platform, right, where we invest capital, and then we also have a sort of think of it as a founders academy where we work with, the absolute best early stage founders in our region, India and Southeast Asia, to help them accelerate their journeys, right? I think the discussions we have with our Surge founders are always about going back to the basics. Build an awesome team. Right, focus on real customer problems, build awesome products, get to product market fit. And then once you get to product market fit, you've got to scale prudently, but, bit scale sort of prudently. I mean, that's sort of the, what we've tried to do in Surge, Shruti, is, bring, Sequoia was founded 50 years ago. Sequoia, has been in India for about 16 years. So what we've tried to do is bring our institutional knowledge over 50 years of working with, some of the world's most admired companies to very early stage founders to actually help them understand what it takes to do the right things early in their journey so that they can actually end up building enduring companies 10, 15, 20 years from now. So that's sort of what Surge is. In terms of trends that we're seeing, so I'd say building for the world from day zero is sort of probably the single biggest theme in India's startup ecosystem, right? So companies like Freshworks, Druva, Icertis, and many, many more, right? So we had like no SaaS unicorns 3 years ago. Today we have, I think, 13 or 14 SaaS unicorns, companies like Innovation and so on and so forth. They start in India, they target the world, and then they build for the world. So SaaS, dev tools, and within that we have, large number of themes now, right? So you have enterprise SaaS focused on the US, you have SME SaaS focused on the US, you have dev tools, companies like Postman, companies like Browser Stack, and then you have basically regional SaaS, right? Indian SME SaaS, companies like Katabook, companies like Pagabook, companies like Bikai that are basically building software for India. So I'd say this whole SaaS and dev tools is a massive trend, right? So if you look at our last surge cohort, Shruti, 40% of our cohort is SaaS and dev tools companies. They're building for the world from day zero, right? So that's one big theme. Outside of that, I would say there's innovation everywhere, right? There's no single trend, right? Let's take agri-tech. Sequoia we made our first investment in an agri-tech company about exactly almost 2 years ago, right? It was in our second cohort of surge. We had a company called BChat, but now we have 6 or 7 investments, including in our last cohort, we had a company called Absolute. So whether it's agri-tech, ed-tech, where a space where you already have 5 or 6 unicorns, Byju's, Unacademy, and so on and so forth. We are seeing sort of the next generation of innovators that are either building for, consumers outside the first 50 million, edtech solutions, or they're building edtech for the world. A company like Kite that we've seen, in one of our cohorts that's now focused on edtech, edtech for the world. So across segments, so one is sort of building from India to the world, and then the other one is really in every single sector, from e-commerce to digital health to edtech to agri-tech, we are seeing innovation. And then finally, look, this year, it's interesting that Upasana, there were only 4 tech IPOs. When you think about startups, right, it's tech and tech enabled. So one of the single biggest themes we're seeing now is direct to consumer brands. Companies like Mamaearth, companies like Wow, and in Surge we have companies like Minimalist, companies like Bellora, right, that are actually, building new consumer brands, leveraging digital to build these very, very interesting companies, right? The fastest 0 to 100 crore revenue company in India is not a tech company. It's a direct consumer brand. And the amazing thing, Shruti, it's wildly profitable. Wildly, like think 30% PAT, while you're growing that fast. And these things you never saw in India before, right? And you see it because you have a large e-commerce market and so on and so forth. And the last thing I'd say is, look, I think over the next several years, we've already started seeing some very interesting Web3 startups, right? I know in Parliament today, there was a big discussion on crypto, right? So cryptocurrency is just one small part. Web3 is very, very important, right? So whether it's NFT, whether it's gaming, whether it's DeFi or Webco, what we call Web3 infrastructure, I think that's another big theme that we're seeing. In fact, in the second half of this year, right, 2021, as Sequoia Capital India, we've made 19 investments, 19, Shruti, in Web3 startups. So Web3 is beginning to happen, and I think India has a...
But I would like to know from you, we're talking about Web3, what are the sub-segments that you feel will have a huge potential?
Yeah, it's basically NFT, gaming, DeFi, and what we call Web3 infrastructure, right? So those are really the 4 sub-segments now, but they will grow over a period of time. The fastest 0 to 1 billion GMV company on the history of the planet was an NFT gaming company from Asia. I can't tell you which one it is, but I mean, it's incredible. 7 months. I mean, ask Upasana, you talk to anybody in e-com, I mean, you don't see that, right? 0 to 1 billion GMV, 7 months. Right? I mean, when I say GMV, I mean consumer paid, and obviously these guys make a take on that, right? So gaming, NFT, DeFi is really going to radically change finance, right? In very, very interesting ways. The kind of innovation that we're seeing in DeFi, distributed finance, is extraordinary, Shruti, right? So, and by the way, India, I think, has a unique opportunity to really win Web3 globally. But we have to get our regulatory and legal frameworks in place, right? So I was delighted to see that today our Honorable Finance Minister said that India will not ban crypto. We will come up with a framework, regulatory framework, and we should. Because what's happening in the interim, Shruti, is lots and lots of entrepreneurs from India, from China, from Korea, from Japan, from Australia, from the US, from Paris, from London. Guess where they're moving to? Singapore. You know why? Because Singapore has a regulatory and legal framework for Web3. It's very clear what you can do, what you can't do. And we are shocked to see how many world-class Web3 entrepreneurs are getting on planes and going to Singapore.
Yes, absolutely. True, Rajan. And on that optimistic note, we're running a little out of time. Upasana, let me quickly come to you. and shift focus to one big story that's taken the fintech ecosystem by storm. The RBI recently proposed guidelines to regulate digital lending in India. It's advocating that all short-term products should get categorized as short-term consumer credit and follow the rules accordingly. Upasana, products like buy now, pay later are likely to get impacted as they will go through a longer customer onboarding process as applicable for a typical financial product. Do you think the guidelines will pause the buy now, pay later boom?
So I think, first thing is that India is a deeply credit-starved market. And if internet economy in India is going to boom, then credit's got to happen. And if credit's got to happen, then digital credit is going to happen. And I think what that means is that some layers of regulatory frameworks, will come through for digital lending, all constructs of it, whether it is a personal loan or buy now, pay later or what have you. And I think to that extent, I think RBI is just looking out for the consumer's interests, because India has a very large population of banked customers who do not have access to credit. And so the consumer awareness levels are generally very poor in terms of policy. And what happens is that, like any other sector, there are many good fintech companies that are really trying to make an impact, and they are bringing about financial inclusion in the country. Yes. But there will be some bad apples, and they are exploiting the user's ignorance, so to speak. So guidelines, regulations, whatever comes through, I think that all credible players in the market will very readily adopt them, because they wouldn't have a problem working with the law of the land. And in that, I think if there are some bad apples that get sifted out, I mean, so be it. I think from a buy now, pay later perspective, of course, Mobikwik as a company has been focusing on it, very firmly for the last 3-4 years. And what I can tell you, just like Mobikwik, there are quite a few fintech companies who have been building the buy now, pay later product, where it is only offered to customers who do a full KYC. The onboarding journey is almost as if you are getting a credit card or a personal loan. So my point is that the legit players have already built kosher products, and they will have no challenges in adhering with any guidelines that will come about. While there will be some players, who will have to, clean up their act.
Absolutely, Upasana. And you spoke about bad apples. The RBI report finds 600 out of 1100 lending apps illegal in India. And, RBI has made several recommendations like setting up of a self-regulatory organization or a separate legislation to prevent illegal digital lending activities. But what more needs to be done to create a cyber-secure environment?
So Mobikwik is a member of the Digital Lenders Association of India, and we are together, all of the members, these are all legitimate, decent size, small and large fintech companies. We are studying the guidelines or the working paper that has come through, and we will be working with the regulator in framing whether it is the self-regulating organization or the right recommendations, which we believe will sort of assuage the challenges that we have seen so far in the market. I don't look at this like a bump in the road. I know you mentioned quite a large number, but I can tell you that, it's a 80-20 rule. 80% of the people are following whatever they believe are the right, rules to be followed. And given that there are no rules defined, there is difference of opinion. But of course, as we go forward, newer sectors of fintech are coming through, and the regulator in India is very, very proactive. So I think they will make it easier and easier for companies to get very good clarity on what is the right way to build a large scale business. See, we have seen RBI being very supportive in the last 12 years. We have a prepaid wallet license, we have a Bharat bill payment license, and some more applications with the Reserve Bank. I have only seen them very, very supportive and proactive in helping fintech companies. Because ultimately, I think financial inclusion in India, I think, has got a lot to do with how fintech companies are going to help build it out.
Absolutely. Before I wrap up this conversation, Rajan, let me quickly come to you. Tell us what are the sectors, emerging areas that are likely to gain traction over the next few years. India's SaaS startups, like we discussed, have broken through. Similarly, what are the areas are bound to receive significant attention from marquee investment firms like Sequoia Capital India?
Yeah, as I said, Shruti, I mean, in India, there is opportunity everywhere. right? This is what a lot of folks don't understand is it's no longer about e-commerce only or fintech only or mobility only or, SaaS only or dev tools only, right? I mean, there is innovation everywhere, okay? I mean, over the next 5 years, we're going to see a dozen unicorns in ag tech. We're probably going to see at least a dozen unicorns in digital health. We're going to see, 2 or 3 dozen unicorns in edtech. I mean, I think in fintech, we're going to have 50, 100 unicorns, right? We're going to see several decacorns. So, so I think it's not, I think this question about what are the sectors which are going to be more prominent, Shruti, I think we are beyond that stage now, right? We have 1.3 billion people in India that Indian entrepreneurs are innovating for. But actually now Indian entrepreneurs are innovating for 8 billion people around the world, right? I mean, the world is our oyster. And what we're seeing now is extraordinary. I mean, from trying to disrupt the electric vehicle battery industry to, change the aquaculture industry. I mean, it is all over the place, which is absolutely fantastic.
All right, on that optimistic note, and thank you so much, Rajan, and thank you, Upasana, for giving us time. It was lovely speaking to the both of you. We had such an engaging session. Many thanks for joining us today. And stay tuned to Hindustan Times Leadership Summit. Up next is a session with Sonu Shivdasani on the road ahead for the hospitality sector. Stay tuned. It's a wrap for now.
A vision becomes a milestone when it helps make our lives richer with love and laughter. When it helps make a cleaner, smarter, and a more beautiful planet. So that you can set off on joyous new journeys and adventures. Building stronger bonds and bridging impossible distances, which take you from the ever new to the forever.
Welcome back to the HT Summit, and let me tell you about our next session. One of the things that the pandemic taught us, apart from, of course, appreciating good health and the blessings, all the blessings that we have, it also taught us about the importance and privilege of being able to travel. We stayed home, we could work from anywhere, but you had to use your imagination to think of other locations because lockdowns were everywhere. And even now, with the new variant Omicron, we're all vaccinated and ready to travel and see the world, but the threat of lockdowns and flights being cancelled is again everywhere. So what does the hospitality industry do? Let's hear it from Sonu Shivdasani, who is in conversation with my colleague and HT Brunch editor, Jamal Sheikh. Over to you.
Thank you, Sunetra. Sonu Shivdasani, welcome to the 19th Hindustan Times Leadership Summit, where our theme for the year, after an unexpected period of unexpected challenges, is the new world order. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Jamal. It's a great honor. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you also to Shabana and Hindustan Times. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here today.
The last time I saw you, Mr. Shivdasani, you were setting a new world order of your own. This was the end of summer 2020, when the world was just about coming out of lockdown and the Maldives was opening up. And you got online promising Indian travelers a private jet to fly directly into an airstrip close to your resort, bypassing the busy airport at Malé and avoiding any unnecessary contact. You also promised something that I've never heard anyone promise before. You told your prospective guests with aplomb that if you contract COVID while you're staying with us, we will host you till you've recovered free of cost. That was a bit of a maverick move, wasn't it, Sonu? Did it work for you?
Yes, it did. It got travel kick-started again because back in the summer of 2020, there weren't connections between India and the Maldives, and in particular the key cities like Bombay and Delhi. The flights had stopped. So we started this charter. It worked well. I think we had about 5 or 6 charters where we just filled it up with clients, and reassuring people that if they had COVID, that they wouldn't have to pay for a holiday, because the last thing people want to do is pay for a holiday and then end up locked up in their villa. So we did that, and we stayed true to it. We honored that promise. And over the time, because we're one island, one resort, what we realized very early on in the pandemic was that, especially with Soneva Fushi, where Eva and I were, we decided to stay the lockdown in the Maldives at Soneva Fushi. And we managed to get about 70 guests who decided they weren't going to leave the Maldives. All the other resorts closed. We deliberately decided to stay open at Soneva Fushi, because what we realize is that the true asset of Soneva, it's not the largest lead-in villas in the world or the elaborate selection of sort of dining options or the spas we created when I founded Six Senses and the general wellness that we offer. It's the magical service that the people that occupy our properties create, and they're our asset. So we couldn't just close our resorts, let them go home, not pay them, give them notice, and not tell them when they'd ever get a job again. So they were staying with us. And so we kept our doors open, and we found that there were a lot of guests who were in the Maldives were being kicked out of the resorts they were at. And so they all ended up and stayed with us for about 2 to 3 months. And we realized this idea of one island, one resort, where no one came in and out, you got your private island, there was no COVID because everyone had been there for 14 days, was such bliss, because the rest of the world, you saw lockdowns, people in their homes, in masks, no social contact at all. And here were we, 70 lucky people on this beautiful Eden, interacting with each other, going out for drinks on a Saturday evening, having a quiz night, big dinner parties, drinks parties. And it was like a different world. And so we felt that once the border reopened, we wanted to recreate that. So we decided to set up our own laboratory. We were very lucky. We managed to get one test machine from Roche, which was rare at the time. There was a shortage of testing equipment. So we managed to get it in. We built our laboratory within 2 weeks. We got the government permissions very quickly and started testing everyone on arrival. So we created this fantastic environment with no news, no shoes, but also no masks.
Well, if Instagram is anything to go by, India discovered the Maldives en masse right after this pandemic.
Right.
Now, Sonu, the love story of Sonu and Eva Shivdasani is the toast of the luxury travel world. The two of you met in college, visited the Maldives in the 1990s, fell in love with it and with each other, and opened your first resort in 1995. Soneva, your brand, is Sonu and Eva. And I'm surprised Bollywood hasn't made a love story on it yet. But Sonu, there's another love you've nurtured forever, your love for protecting the planet.
Yeah.
Where did your love for the environment begin? Point us to that one turning point you said, it's time to do something to correct our wrongs.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So I was quite young when we started our project, and being a student, living in Oxford in the 80s, seeing the impact of Thatcherism, you had these beautiful meadows and countryside that suddenly would become big housing estates with 1,000 houses. Ava was Swedish, so she was naturally green right from the beginning. The Swedes saw the impact of acid rain and Chernobyl and the terrible ecological mismanagement of Russia, because they're on Russia's border. So they felt they had all the fallout, literally fallout of that. And so then we came to a beautiful idyll. And at that sort of young age, we felt that a company must have a purpose beyond simply enriching shareholders like Ava and I and our partners and paying employees a salary. And we realized that if we were to do that, we could attract a certain type of person to our organization who would be really engaged and passionate. And as I touched upon earlier, the definition of luxury in our industry is not how elaborate the physical asset is. It's the people, it's the magic. And magical service can only be trained to an extent. It has to be instilled, it has to come from the gut. So if you have a core purpose that goes beyond just simply enriching yourself and your employees, it can ring true to them. And they feel passionate about the business, and they get up every morning being proud Sanavians and wanting to go and create magic for our guests. So it sort of works very well. And in fact, that's why I think one of the few hotel companies to have won the equivalent to the Oscars, not just for luxury in travel and tourism, but also sustainability for travel and tourism more than once. The World Travel and Tourism Council, the government private sector partnership, gave us their Tourism for Tomorrow award in 2008, and then again in 2015 when they met in Madrid. And so it's just been very important to us, and a big part of our success, I think, this idea of sustainability. And it's really ingrained in us. It's not a new fad. It's something that was started at the beginning. It's our core purpose, and it's our DNA.
So Sonu, I first saw the top pop glass bottles for water for the first time in my life in a luxury resort when I first visited Soneva Fushi in 2011. 10 years later, hotels are still struggling to get rid of plastic waste. Is the luxury travel industry doing enough to protect the environment? Is sustainability now a part of the new world order?
Well, obviously, sustainability has become much more on the agenda because we're seeing the impact of our previous practices. And I think we need to realize that any economic activity, unfortunately, benefits the richest 20 to 30% on the planet. So if you think about our activity, travel, if you can afford to travel, even if you fly EasyJet or a cheap low-cost airline, I can't remember what the Indian equivalent is, or you stay in a budget hotel, you're still amongst the richest 20% on the planet. And what you're consuming is impacting on the poorest. So we need to be aware of that. And we're starting to see the impact of our behavior. So when we think about it, that by 2030, there'll be more plastic in the ocean. On the current trajectory, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. We've exceeded 4 of the planetary boundaries. I'm not sure if you're aware of this idea of the Stockholm Resilience Center, that there are 10 planetary boundaries. So we've exceeded 4 of them. 1 billion people don't have access to clean water. Christine Lagarde, a few years ago, the head of the IMF, she pronounced that by 2030, half of sub-Saharan Africa will no longer be able to grow the crop that it does. And potentially half of the world's population will be living in areas of water stress, including many people in India. If you think about Gurgaon, the land of golf courses, it's just seeping the water table. So what we're coming towards the cliff end, and that's obviously driving people towards sustainability. And the good thing is that the technology's there, the knowledge is there, the understanding's there. Unfortunately, what's not there yet, and to answer your point, is has the travel industry truly embraced, and the luxury travel industry truly embraced sustainability? No. Only lip service, because there's so much more one can do. And when one puts one's mind to it, as I said, the technology is there, the opportunities are there, but it's not being followed through.
If I were to ask you to pick one thing the luxury travel industry needs to do urgently to save the environment, what would that one thing be?
It's a whole list of things. I mean, it's a bit like the onion.
The first one, right on top of the pyramid.
Well, I mean, obviously your impact on carbon emissions is a top priority. Waste is clearly very important. Eliminating the single use of plastic is another big thing. So I think those, and then engaging in the community. I think one of the big challenges the travel and tourism industry has had, and that's why in certain destinations it's had such a terrible image, is that quite often the travel and tourism industry has created economic output, but has not created greater happiness for the local population. Think of the coast of Spain, the Costa Brava. You had a lot of GDP, but if you were a Spaniard living on the Costa Brava, who would go out in the morning and catch fish, or if you weren't a fisherman, you go to the fishing market, and you'd find cheap fish. You'd live on the coast by the beach. You'd wake up in the morning, you'd go for a swim. And then suddenly the Germans came along. They built these big skyscrapers, created bars, brought in German employees, brought in German food. Real estate prices went through the roof. So as a local, you couldn't afford there. You had to go and live in the hills, a bit like what the Spaniards did to the Mayans, when they invaded Latin America. So, there was a bit of poetic justice. But and your all the raw materials just went through the roof. There was a sort of huge inflationary pressure. So your cost of your quality of living deteriorated. So I think that's the key thing for a hotel operator, to ensure that you are actually benefiting the community around. You're employing locally, you're engaging with the community, and you're minimizing your impact on the planet. And you can do that.
Let's hope that happens. Let's shift focus a little bit from the industry to the travelers and to your guests. How has the luxury traveler, Sonu, changed post-COVID?
How have they changed post-COVID? I think they're more sensitive as individuals, as human beings. They're more engaged, and they thrive social interaction. So, what we've found in our no news, no shoes, and no masks, where we're testing everyone, our COVID-free environments, is that guests love to talk to other guests. I mean, our sort of environments have like-minded people from all over the world, and it's in a casual setting, so you're not wearing shoes. It's not like some of these hotels where you have to dress up at dinner and where you feel very formal. And the moment you feel formal and you're wearing a jacket and shoes, you don't feel you can go across to your neighbor and say hello. Whereas when you're barefoot, you can. And people create amazing bonds from all over the world. And post-COVID, that's increased. More people are just going and having dinner with other guests because they can't do that back home. And they know they can do it there. They can have a conversation with someone and know that they're COVID-free, and have a laugh together, give someone a hug, and then engage more with the property. And they want to learn and evolve more. They want to develop themselves, and I think people are much more sensitive as human beings. I think what's happened is we got a bit of a shock, and our traditional way of being was knock for six, and that's always good in a way, because it's always good to have that dramatic sort of knock.
Right. So let me ask you the same question, but with a twist. How has the luxury traveler from India changed post-COVID?
How has the luxury traveler from India changed post-COVID? I think quite similar. I mean, they're staying a bit longer. So we're suddenly seeing Indian guests staying for 2 weeks, which wouldn't have happened before, and really enjoying it. And because especially in India, life's quite stressful, especially if you're very successful. You really have to put in the hours. There's a lot of stress. There's quite a lot of pollution. There's a lot of background noise. And there's a lot of friction to getting things done. You might have a vision and a view and you want to achieve a goal, but there's continuous friction. The moment you get out of your house, there may be traffic. The moment you want to get something done, there may be some government bureaucracy. All of that friction jars. And so it takes you a few days to decompress. And if you're there for 2 weeks, you really do unwind completely. And this idea of without news, it creates that suspension of disbelief, and it allows you to really disengage from what you're doing and engage with the reality we've created.
Right. Let's spend a few minutes talking about the word luxury. You've said before that true luxury is what is rare. Yeah. Marble, gold taps, etc. do not cut it for you. spending a week walking barefoot on sand is what does.
Yeah.
How did you, Sonu, turn walking bare feet into a much coveted luxury?
Well, yes. So we've always wanted to, our core purpose, as I mentioned, we've always had this core purpose, and our core purpose has been slow life, imaginative, engaging slow life. Essentially, we're offering our guests luxuries whilst minimizing our impact on the planet and enhancing their health. And we did that by questioning and challenging what really was a luxury. And as you touched upon, luxury is not about objects. It's not about gold and marble. And quite often people think it is. It's about that which is rare. And we need to bear in mind that the context of the successful who can afford to stay with us has completely changed over the last 50 years. We've had the internet revolution. We've had Thatcherism, Reaganism in the 80s, the internet revolution. We had the BRICS. The world's changed. The rich and the successful are now self-made. They're not the landed gentry. They're living in an urban environment. And what was taken for granted by the successful in the past is now very rare. If you're living in an urban environment, you might be the richest man in the country you live in, and you might have a 40-story house, but can you walk barefoot for a week or have that fresh salad that was plucked from the garden? Fresh air is a premium. Space, privacy are challenges. Having a shower, listening to the hotel's Bose sound system with your favorite song already downloaded by the hotel's team on your on the hotel's iPod, and seeing the full moon, or watching a movie where the stars are not just on the screen, or talking about the stars, seeing the stars through one of the largest telescopes in the Indian Ocean, and having someone like the second man on the moon, Buzz Aldrin, or Massimo Tarengi, who runs the largest telescope in the Atacama Desert, or even our own resident astronomer explaining the universe out there. You can't do that in a city like Bombay or New York or Delhi with the smog. So these become rare, priceless experiences.
Now, Maldives is very rich in natural beauty, but Sonu, you don't really take away a slice of Maldivian culture when you leave. Is that a challenge you've tried to tackle before?
I think you do, in a way, get the sense of the beauty of the people, and you certainly take away a slice of Soneva culture. So, funny enough, my title is the guardian of the culture, because I believe that as the CEO of an organization, your job should be to create a culture, to create values and beliefs and language. So that's why we don't have employees, we have hosts. Can you imagine walking on an island with 350 employees or an island with 350 hosts? The guest experience is completely different. So language drives behavior, and that's my job. And so there's a very strong Soneva culture that our guests are touched by, and which impacts them, and it sometimes changes their lives.
Another allegation against the Maldives, that all resorts look the same, they just have different brand names. True or false?
Generally true, and that's why we sold Six Senses. So I sort of believe the challenge with luxury is it's become very institutional. You'll walk down a famous high street like Bond Street, or a luxury airport, and you'll see all of these names of people who once passionate about making a dress, or a piece of luggage, or a jewel, or a watch. Yes. And all of these names are now just owned by a few groups, and that's in the luxury section. But you now see that in hospitality, all of these brands, including the brand that I founded and sold, is now owned by one of the 4 or 5 big mainstream hotel chains that have a whole garage of brands. And the thing is, they're not the owners of their hotels, they're the operator. The owner is generally a financial institution. It's a private equity firm, it's a sovereign wealth fund, a public company whose sole purpose is to maximize shareholder wealth. They don't have a mission and idea. When Coco Chanel created that dress, she had a vision on how fashion should be driven. And that's what luxury brands should be about. It should be about individuals who have a view, who have a vision, and create something special. And that's not the case at the moment. And the risk of luxury hospitality, not just in the Maldives, but anywhere in the world, is that they risk, these luxury brands risk becoming the Intercontinentals and the Sheratons and the Hiltons of the 2030s, because they're using the same architects, same designers, same SOPs, quite often the same GMs. You'll see a GM who worked at one luxury brand one year, next year something else, and they do look the same. You can change the sign. I mean, there are 4 luxury hotels in the Maldives where if you look at the interior design, it's exactly the same. It's like a shed. They do a shed thing. It's very long room and these very long doors, and there are 4 of them. And the slight difference is the color scheme's different, but that's it. So you're quite right. I mean, a lot of luxury hotels are becoming nondescript, and then you lose the brand differentiation, because at some point, why will someone pay a premium over another hotel who's just discounted their rate? And so that's why we sold Six Senses, because we realized we didn't want to manage other people's hotels. We wanted to be both the owner and operator of our hotels, because we feel we've got a very strong message and strong values, and we wanted to ensure that we could, and that message was undiluted, because we were both the owner and operator of our hotels. And I think that's in time will be our strength. And yeah.
Fantastic. Now, in 2011, you started selling your villas in the Maldives on leasehold. And I remember you saying then that there has been interest from Indian families. Are wealthy Indians buying tropical homes in the Indian Ocean?
Well, funny enough, we've had the interest, but we haven't quite closed on one Indian family yet. So we've sold about 30 residences, and bizarrely, it's to people who live within 8 to 12 hours, more than 8 to 12 hours away. So long haul travelers. We don't have a single guest that lives within a 4-hour distance, but I think that will change. We currently have a lot of Indian prospects. COVID has changed that. It's much easier now. There's a very strong relationship between the Maldives and India. So I think Indians feel there's a sense of security of investing in the Maldives now because of the close relationship between the two governments. I think as an Indian, you can use Indian currency and sort of invest as well. So there are lots of advantages that the Maldives has because of the close relationship that the Prime Minister Modi and the President Soli have. And I think we'll start to see some Indian buyers soon.
Let's shift gears and move away from the Maldives for a bit. Like several other industries, luxury travel has been one of the worst hit as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah.
What do you think the industry must do now to bounce back?
Right. Well, I think, I think sort of, it's a good question. I mean, we're very lucky because we're in remote locations. And so I think what one needs to do is one needs to offer guests unique experiences that they cherish and treasure, and give guests a sense of safety. So if you can test people on arrival and create COVID-free environments, do that. I think you need to, and I think create unique experiences that are special, that people really wish to and yearn to travel for. I think, unfortunately, corporate travel's dead for obvious reasons, just like what we're doing now. So I think corporate travel is permanently stunted. It will recover from the time when there was a complete lockdown and zero travel, but it will be half of its historic levels. Because if you think about it, corporate travel is a function of the growth of the economy divided by improvement in communication technology. So we had Teams and we had Zoom before COVID, but we didn't have the adoption of this technology. And what COVID did is it fast forwarded the future. So all of this technology, like we're experiencing right here now, was adopted.
But you did speak very recently about the bleisure traveler with a B, the business traveler who stays on at the destination he comes for leisure. Is the bleisure traveler of particular interest to Soneva?
Well, our focus has always been the leisure traveler, and it always will be. And we will eventually have Sonevas in urban environments, because I do think that cities will have a recovery. And in a way, I think they'll have a really good future. Funny enough, it may be bleak at the moment because you have these hotels that are orientated towards the corporate traveler that are suffering and will continue to suffer. But what will happen is that vacuum that the corporate traveler has created will allow space for the leisure traveler. And the leisure traveler is much more beneficial to the host city, because as a holiday maker, you might arrive at midday, you leave your bags in the hotel, you go out for lunch somewhere. You then go shopping in the afternoon. In the evening, you go to the theatre or a museum in the late afternoon, and then you go to dinner again. So you're spending in the economy, whereas the business traveler who occupies that hotel room goes to a meeting, goes back to his room, does emails, has a coffee and a soup, and goes to sleep. So very little extra spending, and he's occupying that hotel room and not supporting the city. But if you suddenly have all these hotel rooms occupied by people who are investing considerably in spending in the city, then all the entrepreneurs that are providing these services suddenly have a huge amount of cash. And they start spending more on restaurants, more on theatre, more on museum displays, more on everything, better shops, more beautifully displayed shops, because they know they can generate more revenue. So it becomes a virtuous circle. I'm quite bullish about the future of cities, but not for corporate-oriented hotels.
Well, I'm actually curious to see what Soneva in a city and an urban environment would look like, because the idea of Soneva is it doesn't make you want to leave. And if that happens in a city, it'll be a problem. But Sonu, as we reach the end of our chat, let's lighten things up. I'm going to put to you 10 fun questions, and I'd request you to please answer them in a similar light-hearted manner. Are we ready?
Sure.
Question 1, complete the sentence. Luxury travel, true luxury travel stands for?
True luxury travel stands for true happiness.
When ideas from Soneva, like No News, No Shoes or Movies Under the Stars, get copied by other resorts, are you flattered or frustrated?
Flattered, because you can't copy our DNA and our culture, and it runs true. So you might take a few apps, but you won't change the whole overall experience.
What, according to you, is the bigger threat to the luxury travel industry, the pandemic or our depleting natural resources?
I think we can get over the pandemic, and we have, as we've seen. I think the issue is sustainability and the environment, of course. That's a huge threat for humanity as a whole, not just our industry.
What would you tell a top dollar paying customer who's being destructive of nature at one of your resorts?
We would sort of explain the situation. Our hosts are very passionate. They've been with us for a long time, and they're really passionate about our values. But we do it in a nice way.
In one line, describe the slow travel movement that you've propagated.
Slow travel, I mean, essentially, it's offering our guests luxuries whilst minimizing our impact on the planet and enhancing their health. So sustainability, luxury, and wellness not being opposites, but feeding off each other.
What's the first thing a guest must look for when checking into a luxury resort?
Well, personally, I love food and wine. So I sort of look at the restaurants, the menus. I do, actually, and the wine list. So for me, that's quite important to look at. If I book a restaurant in a city, I'll look at their wine list and try and understand that, because for me, that's a very important experience. I think it's the people. I think you can tell when you check into a hotel, you can immediately tell whether you've come to the right place and whether there's really passionate, genuine hosts who really wanted to deliver an experience. So it's one of those things you can tell when you've gone into a rotten hotel or a good hotel.
Right.
However luxurious the rotten hotel might look physically.
Right. Which is the most luxurious resort you've been to other than one of your own? And tell us why you'd go there again.
Right. We love North Island in the Seychelles. Again, it's one island, one resort. It's very private, very exclusive. It's barefoot. It's exactly what Soneva espouses to be, but it's not one of our own. So we feel very relaxed. You know, when we're in our own hotels, you know, we'll see something that'll bug the hell out of us. You see something wrong in another hotel, you don't mind. You're very relaxed about it. We love that. We love Florence, Villa San Michele up in Fiesole, sitting on the terrace there, looking down on Florence with a nice bottle of good Super Tuscan and old vintage and a nice spaghetti a vongole is a nice experience.
Fabulous. After the Maldives, your favorite island destination is?
Oh, and I mustn't forget the Peninsula. Peninsula Hong Kong is a really iconic hotel. Love it, yeah.
Right, right. After the Maldives, Sonu, your favorite island destination is?
After the Maldives, my favorite island destination is... good question. I think it's Seychelles.
Seychelles. The last two questions. Instagram to luxury travel is a blessing or a curse?
I think if you use it correctly, it can be good. Yeah.
The biggest challenge for the luxury industry post the pandemic is?
Biggest challenge for the luxury industry post the pandemic. I think there's obviously volatility. And I think with any crisis, if you can look at a crisis in a positive way and you can juggle, then I think it can be very positive.
And the biggest opportunity is?
The biggest opportunity for?
Post the pandemic for the luxury travel industry.
Oh, right. Yes, to reinforce and create a strong bond with your clients. Especially in remote environments where clients have a sense of comfort, care, protection. If you can create unique experiences, people will want to come and they'll want to engage with you.
Sonu Shivdasani, thank you for talking to us. What an absolute pleasure it's been. When they call your love story with Eva the toast of the travel world, they mean more than that. You've shown the luxury travel industry a sense of responsibility towards protecting the planet, and you've given your guests an ownership of our own future. Post-COVID, you are leading the way with initiatives big hotel groups are watching keenly. Thank you for joining us at the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit and giving us your view on luxury travel in the New World Order. We wish you good health and every happiness that you strive so hard to impart to every guest who visits you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Jamal. And thank you once more for the honor. It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
A vision becomes a milestone when it helps make our lives richer with love and laughter. When it helps make a cleaner, smarter, and a more beautiful planet. So that you can set off on joyous new journeys and adventures. Building stronger bonds and bridging impossible distances, which take you from the ever new to the forever beautiful. Opening up vistas and windows to a vibrant new world. A vision becomes a milestone when it touches millions of lives. Aditya Birla Group. Big in your life.
We made a promise to be at the forefront of development, to power growth across the country, to set an example for cleanliness and create a land of opportunity. From bountiful reserves of minerals to steel that's strengthened by resolve, from untouched tribal cultures to undiscovered lands of old, we are many and we are one. We are Chhattisgarh.
We always wonder what lies beyond. What lies beyond conventions?
Hello, Blue Link. I'm feeling hot.
Blue Link, I'm feeling cold.
Beyond technology? Beyond innovations? Beyond mobility? Amazing things can happen when we go beyond. At Hyundai, we're going beyond mobility, and you're welcome to join us.
माई पेरेंट्स। मेरे लिए ना कॉलेज चुना ना सब्जेक्ट्स, बट उनका प्लान था बहुत ही स्पेशल, जिससे बन गया मेरा फ्यूचर।
LIC का न्यू चिल्ड्रंस मनी बैक प्लान, जो आपके बच्चों का फ्यूचर करे प्रोटेक्ट हर जरूरी मोड़ पर।
इट्स अ फ्यूचर बिल्डिंग प्लान।
हाय माँ।
Luxury. In India, I discovered that true luxury isn't something you buy off a shelf. True luxury is a feeling that you are the Maharani of your world, and it can be all designed around you. All the beauty is yours. All the music is yours.
Hello and welcome to the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit. We are on day 4 of the summit that's been on all this week. And of course, it's a penultimate day, and we have one of our biggest newsmakers today, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, 4-time Chief Minister, Shivraj Singh Chouhan, now joins us for this session. Shivraj Singh ji, आपका बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद
आप पिछले साल भी थे।
आप जब कहेंगे मैं हाजिर होऊंगा।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, बिकॉज मैं जानती हूँ कि आपके पूरे दिन मीटिंग्स थे, अपॉइंटमेंट्स थे, इसके बीच आपने समय निकाला, तो वी आर रियली अप्रिशिएट दैट सर। सबसे पहले सर मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी कि हर जगह पूरे देश में और पूरी दुनिया में लोगों को इस बात की चिंता हो रही है कि ओमिक्रॉन जो नया कोविड का वेरिएंट है, उसके बारे में लोगों को काफी चिंता हो रही है। मैं जानना चाहती हूँ कि पिछले साल भी जब हमारी बातचीत हुई थी, उस समय हमारी डिस्कशन इस बारे में हुई थी कि वैक्सीन कब आएगा, क्या लोगों को किस तरीके से आप उसको बांटेंगे, लोगों को देंगे। अब इसके बाद 1 साल में हम बजाय उसके कि हम सेलिब्रेट करें कि इतने लोगों को लगा चुके हैं, हमें हर बार एक नए वेरिएंट की चिंता करनी पड़ रही है। तो मैं आपसे जानना चाहती थी, मुख्यमंत्री होकर आपके लिए पिछले साल का और अब किस तरीके का चैलेंज?
देखिए, मैं चिंतित जरूर हूं, लेकिन परेशान नहीं हूं। जो भी परिस्थिति हमको मुकाबला करना होगा। मध्य प्रदेश ने कोरोना से मुकाबले के लिए जन भागीदारी का मॉडल बनाया। हमने हर एक स्तर पर, मतलब पंचायत स्तर पर, ब्लॉक स्तर पर और डिस्ट्रिक्ट के स्तर पर, जिला स्तर पर क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट कमेटीज बनाई। क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट कमेटी में जिला स्तर पर सांसद, विधायक, उस जिले में रहने वाले प्रमुख समाज सेवी, पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के वर्कर और विधायक हमने केवल नहीं बुलाया, जो सेकंड नंबर भी रहते किसी भी पार्टी के हो, नंबर 2 पे जो रहते उनको भी शामिल किया, क्योंकि ऐसी महामारी से हम मिलकर ही लड़ सकते हैं, ये भाव मेरा था। और मध्य प्रदेश में जो सेकंड वेव से भी हम निपट पाए, उसमें क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट कमेटीज का बड़ा गंभीर रोल था। उन्होंने कोविड केयर सेंटर चलाने से लेके यहाँ तक कि पंचायत में भी जरूरत पड़ी तो उन्होंने पंचायत भवन को कोविड केयर सेंटर बना दिया, दवाइयों की किट बांटे, टेस्ट ठीक से हो जाए इसकी चिंता की, गांव में कौन व्यक्ति सामान लेने जाएगा ताकि पूरे गांव को शहर ना जाना पड़े संक्रमण को फैलने से रोकने के लिए। फिर टीकाकरण का उन्होंने प्रयास किया। एक अद्भुत प्रयोग था मध्य प्रदेश का, जिसकी प्रधानमंत्री जी और भारत सरकार ने भी प्रशंसा की। अभी 1 तारीख को ही मैंने सारी क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट कमेटी से फिर बात की, वर्चुअली हमने पंचायत तक की। 22,000 से ज्यादा पंचायत के लोगों को मैंने जोड़ा, सभी जिलों को जोड़ा, ब्लॉक्स को जोड़ा और सबको हमने सावधानियां बताई, क्योंकि WHO ने जो कहा, हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो कहा, मैंने नीचे तक शेयर किया। नंबर 1 हमारा सबसे पहला जोर है, सेकेंड डोज दिसंबर के एंड तक हमारा 100% हो जाए। अभी 67% के आसपास हम पहुंचे हैं। लगातार हमारा अभियान चल रहा है क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट कमेटीज के माध्यम से। दूसरे, क्योंकि हम लोग खुली हवा में सांस ले रहे थे, लोगों ने मास्क लगाना छोड़ दिया, दूरियां छोड़ दी, शादी विवाह मेला ठेला, एक खुली हवा में लोगों ने सांस लिया। और सारे प्रतिबंध हमने समाप्त किए थे। अब हमने फिर अपील की है कि आप मास्क लगाएं, डिस्टेंस बना के रखें, हाथ साफ रखें। तो जितनी फिर कोई अगर हॉल में मीटिंग्स होती है तो वेंटिलेशन का सिस्टम ऐसा होना चाहिए कि जिसके कारण संक्रमण ना फैले। तो जितनी सावधानियां बताई गई है वो हमने नीचे तक बताई। मैं खुद सड़क पे निकला, लोगों को मास्क लगाए, लोगों को समझाया, बात की कि सेकंड डोज लगा कि नहीं लगा। इसके साथ हमने 1 तारीख को मॉक ड्रिल की। हमने जितने ऑक्सीजन प्लांट पीएसएज लगाए, हमने लगभग 200 पीएसएज लगाए, 178 हमारे कार्यरत, बाकी पे तेजी से काम चल रहा है। तो मैं इनका पहले से चला के देख लो ये ठीक से चल रहे कि नहीं चल रहे, ऑक्सीजन की लाइन में कहीं लीकेज तो नहीं है, दवाइयां पूरी है कि नहीं, वेंटिलेटर देख लो, कंसंट्रेटर देख लो। तो ये सारी तैयारियां युद्ध स्तर पर हम शुरू कर रहे हैं। लेकिन पहला जोर हमारा ये है कि जनता के सहयोग से हम थर्ड वेव को आने से ही रोक पाए, उसको गंभीर ना होने दें। लेकिन दूसरी, हर परिस्थिति से हमें तैयार रहना चाहिए और इसलिए हमने आवश्यक सारी तैयारियां प्रारंभ की है।
पर मुख्यमंत्री जी, लोग तो थक जाते हैं। आपने जैसे कहा, लोग खुले हवा में घूम रहे हैं, वो इतने दिन, 1.5 साल वो घर के अंदर रहे या काम पे नहीं गए, स्कूल कॉलेजेस बंद रहे। तो अब जब आपको ये भी नहीं मालूम होगा, बिकॉज जो वैज्ञानिक है वो ये कह रहे हैं कि ये जो नया वेरिएंट है ये कितना डेंजरस है, कितनी जल्दी फैल सकता है, ये अभी भी हमें लैब से ये इंफॉर्मेशन। तो जब ऐसा माहौल है कि साइंस भी अभी हमें नहीं मालूम, लेकिन हमें ध्यान से रहना पड़ेगा, बच के रहना पड़ेगा, तो आप लोगों को कैसे समझाते हैं? और क्या ऐसा भी होता है कि जब वो सुनना नहीं चाहते हैं?
हम 3 प्रयास करते हैं। नंबर 1, मैं जनता को संदेश देता हूं, टीवी के माध्यम, टीवी में भी मेरा संदेश आता है, रेडियो के माध्यम से आता है, सोशल मीडिया के माध्यम से जाता है। नंबर 2, केवल संदेश नहीं देता, सड़क पे भी उतरता हूं और सड़क पर उतर के आग्रह करता हूं कि देखिए सावधानी रखिए, इसी में सुरक्षा है। तीसरी चीज, एक मैं अकेला नहीं, सारे जनप्रतिनिधि, सारे धर्मगुरु, सारे सामाजिक संगठन, स्वयंसेवी संगठन, व्यापारिक संगठन, विद्यार्थियों के संगठन, एनसीसी, एनएसएस, जन अभियान परिषद, रोटरी, लायंस, जितने तरह की राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी जिसमें बीजेपी है, दूसरी पार्टी को भी हमने कहा है। और सबसे अपील करके, अब देखिए मास्क की संख्या बढ़ गई है, पहले बिल्कुल दिखाई नहीं देते थे, 100% नहीं लगा रहे, लेकिन थोड़ी अवेयरनेस आई है। तो ये हमको करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि दूसरी लहर में जो नुकसान हमने उठाया है वो दर्द अभी लोगों का ताजा है। इसलिए लोग मानते भी है, ये बात जरूर है कि बिजनेस व्यापार ठप ना हो, इकोनॉमी फिर से हमारी उसमें रुकावट ना आए, गरीबों के काम धंधे जारी रहे। इसलिए हम बाकी प्रतिबंध नहीं लगा रहे। हमने एक सावधानी हमने केवल की है, कॉलेज में नहीं, केवल स्कूल में 12th तक बच्चों की जो फिजिकल प्रेजेंस थी स्कूल में उसको 50% किया है। मतलब 3 दिन आधे बच्चे आएंगे, 3 दिन आधे बच्चे आएंगे, ताकि वो एक साथ डिस्टेंसिंग बना के रख सकें, पास पास ना बैठें। तो ये अभी जितना मिनिमम हो सकता है उतनी हम कर रहे हैं। बाकी आगे देखेंगे, साइंटिस्ट जैसा कहेंगे, दोनों तरह की चीजें आ रही है, एक बड़ी तेजी से फैलता है, आ रही है कि माइल्ड है, कोई बहुत ऐसा नहीं है कि जिसके कारण जान जाए। अभी तक जो फिर भी जो निष्कर्ष निकल के आएंगे उसके हिसाब से फिर माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी जो तय करेंगे, भारत सरकार जो तय करेगी, उसके हिसाब से।
एक आपके कॉलीग हैं केरल के जो मुख्यमंत्री है, क्योंकि हमने पूरे देश में ही देखा है कि जबकि फर्स्ट डोज का जो वैक्सीनेशन रेट है वो काफी अच्छा है और आपके प्रदेश में तो बहुत ही अच्छा है, लेकिन सेकेंड डोज लोग सोचते हो गया, अब एक टीका लग गया, कोई जरूरत इतनी जल्दी है नहीं। और बहुत लोगों को ये भी लगता है कि एक बार हमें कोविड अगर हो चुका है तो हमें जरूरत भी नहीं है। तो केरल के जो आपके जो कॉलीग हैं, मुख्यमंत्री हैं पिनरई विजय, उन्होंने ये ऐलान किया है, अगर आप वैक्सीन नहीं लेंगे, अगर आप टीका नहीं लगवाएंगे तो फिर आपको फिर सरकारी जो मुफ्त ट्रीटमेंट है वो आपको नहीं मिलेगी। क्या आप ऐसे सख्ती को सपोर्ट करते हैं?
मुझे लगता है मध्य प्रदेश में इसकी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी और मध्य प्रदेश में दिसंबर एंड तक हम सबका टीकाकरण कर देंगे। अपवाद स्वरूप कोई बचे तो मैं इसकी नहीं कह सकता, लेकिन तेजी से हमारे यहाँ वैक्सीनेशन का काम जारी है। सेकेंड डोज भी लगभग 67% लोगों को हो गया है। हम महाअभियान भी चलाते हैं, मतलब कुछ दिन हम विशेष रूप से अभियान चला के खुद निकलते हैं, जनप्रतिनिधियों को निकालते हैं, क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट कमेटीज को निकालते हैं, तो उस दिन बड़ी संख्या में होता है वैक्सीनेशन। अब हमारा टारगेट है दिसंबर एंड तक हम 100% जो पात्र है, 100% का मतलब है कि कभी 100 में से 100 लोग तो मिलते नहीं, कुछ बाहर काम के लिए गए होते हैं, कोई पढ़ने गए, कोई कहीं, लेकिन जो उपलब्ध है, अवेलेबल है, जैसे फर्स्ट डोज हमारा 93% का, उसके बाद लोग मिल ही नहीं रहे, तो हम उतना हम निश्चित तौर पर कर लेंगे। हम समझा के ही करेंगे, मुझे लगता है कि कोई ऐसे आदेश को निकालने की मध्य प्रदेश में जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी।
आई कमेंड यू सर कि आप इतने कॉन्फिडेंट हैं मध्य प्रदेश के बारे में 100% डबल वैक्सीनेशन के लिए, लेकिन आपको नहीं लगता है कि ओवरऑल सेंटर ने भी केंद्र सरकार ने भी ये प्रॉमिस किया था कि वो 100% वैक्सीनेशन कर लेंगे, शायद ये मुश्किल लग रहा है अब दिसंबर के अंत तक, क्या वो मानेंगे सर आप?
देखिए, भारत जैसे देश में अगर आप ओवरऑल वैक्सीनेशन देखेंगे तो दुनिया के कई देशों की पॉपुलेशन जितनी है उससे कई गुना ज्यादा वैक्सीनेशन हम कर चुके हैं। ये अपने आप में चमत्कार है, बहुत बड़ा काम हुआ है, और लगातार रोज आप देख रहे हैं 1 करोड़ के आसपास, कभी 89 लाख, कभी 70, और कुछ दिन तो ऐसे हुए जहां 1 करोड़ से ऊपर 2 करोड़ से भी ज्यादा वैक्सीनेशन हुआ है। तो कुल मिलाकर जो हुआ है वो निश्चित तौर पर अभिनंदनीय है। अब थोड़ा सा प्रयास और अगर हम करेंगे, देखिए जमीन पे भारत सरकार के साथ राज्यों को कोशिश करनी पड़ेगी। इंप्लीमेंट तो चीजें राज्य में नीचे राज्य की टीम करेगी, केंद्र वैक्सीनेशन भरपूर, प्रधानमंत्री जी फ्री में दे रहे हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। अब आज ये सवाल नहीं कि वैक्सीन हमारे पास उपलब्ध है कि नहीं, पर्याप्त मात्रा में है। अब राज्यों का ये काम है, जिन राज्यों में कम हुआ है तो वो नीचे तक जाके समाज को साथ जोड़ के, लोगों को साथ लेके वैक्सीनेशन के काम को युद्ध स्तर पर कराए।
मुख्यमंत्री जी, अब मैं थोड़ा कुछ और पॉलिटिकल टॉपिक पे आना चाहूंगी कि पिछले कुछ दिनों में अगर हम देखें तो सबसे बड़ी खबर और सबसे बड़ा हेडलाइन यही था जब प्रधानमंत्री ने ये जो 3 बिल जो फार्म लॉज जो हैं ये वापस ले लिए। मुझे याद है कि जब मेरे हिंदुस्तान समिट का जो पिछले साल हमने बातचीत की थी, उस समय भी हमने किसानों की बात की थी। मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती थी, क्या आपने ऐसा एक्सपेक्ट किया था कि मोदी जी ये करेंगे, कि वो वापस ले लेंगे?
प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमान नरेंद्र मोदी जी जो करते हैं वो देश हित में करते हैं, और जहां तक कृषि कानूनों का सवाल है, केंद्र सरकार अपनी पूरी बात रख चुकी है।
बट आप बहुत लोग सर बहुत सरप्राइज्ड हो गए थे। मैं बस इतना जानना चाहती थी कि क्या आपने एक्सपेक्ट किया था या फिर आप भी मतलब बिल्कुल शॉक्ड हो गए या सरप्राइज्ड हो गए?
पीएम का हर फैसला राष्ट्र हित में है, किसानों के हित में है।
जी, ये पूछना चाहूंगी सर आपसे कि अभी चुनाव होने वाले हैं, आप तो स्टार कैंपेनर हैं भाजपा के लिए, आप भी जाएंगे आई एम श्योर प्रचार करने हर जगह। तो ये जो ऑपोजिशन के जो लोग हैं, जो नेता हैं, उनका वो सारे लोगों को यही बता रहे हैं कि देखो मोदी सरकार और भाजपा सरकार ने ये गलती की थी और ये वापस ले लेना इससे बिल्कुल साबित हो जाता है कि ये गलती की है। तो आपको नहीं लगता है कि लोगों को आप लोग कैसे कन्विंस करेंगे, कैसे समझाएंगे? जो वोटर है, जो जनता है, उनसे आप लोग क्या कहेंगे?
देखिए, प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमान नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में एक वैभवशाली, गौरवशाली, संपन्न और समृद्ध भारत का निर्माण हो रहा है। आज पूरी दुनिया का भारत की तरफ देखने का नजरिया बदला हुआ है, आप स्वयं भी जानते हैं। पर्यावरण जैसे मुद्दों पे और अनेकों मुद्दे ऐसे हैं, जब दूसरे देशों के राष्ट्र प्रमुख प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमान नरेंद्र मोदी जी की तरफ देखते हैं, जब पीएम कहते हैं कि 1 सन 1 वर्ल्ड 1 ग्रिड, तो ब्रिटेन के प्रधानमंत्री कहते हैं एंड 1 नरेंद्र मोदी। देखिए, नरेंद्र मोदी जी आज ऐसी शख्सियत है जो वैश्विक लीडर है और दुनिया के नेतृत्व की जिनमें क्षमता है। प्रदेश में भी, देश में भी अगर आप देखें तो जितनी कल्याणकारी योजनाएं प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमान नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने प्रारंभ की है, जनता उनको हृदय से श्रद्धा की दृष्टि से देखती है। और कई योजना ऐसी है, मैं गर्व के साथ कहता हूं कि मध्य प्रदेश ने जिसमें बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म किया है, एक नहीं अनेकों योजनाएं, उनका नाम गिनाने की आवश्यकता नहीं है, जिन लोगों की जिंदगी बदली है, गरीबों का भरोसा बढ़ा है, किसानों का विश्वास बढ़ा है। और इसलिए चुनाव में हमारे लिए डेवलपमेंट और जन कल्याण यही मुद्दा है, इसको लेके जाएंगे और हमको अटल विश्वास है कि हम भारी बहुमत से आने वाले इन चुनाव में विजय प्राप्त करेंगे। अभी त्रिपुरा जैसे राज्य का चुनाव परिणाम आपने देखा, मैं तो आश्चर्यचकित रह गया। परिणाम आपको मालूम है कि इक्का दुक्का सीट छोड़ के बाकी सारी सीट बीजेपी जीत गई। तो ये विकास के कामों का ही परिणाम है। चुनाव में जनता भी अब डेवलपमेंट, दूसरा कहते हैं हम पब्लिक वेलफेयर, जनता के कल्याण को ही देखती है, बाकी चीजें नहीं देखती।
तो आपने स्कीम की बात की सर, तो मैं अपने दर्शक जो है उनको भी बताना चाहूंगी कि आपका जो एक स्कीम है किसानों वालों, जो भावांतर स्कीम है, जो डिफरेंस होगा एमएसपी से, अगर कोई कम ले रहा होगा, मार्केट में बिक रहा होगा, आप लोग वो दे देते हैं, और ये किसानों में काफी चर्चित है और काफी पॉपुलर स्कीम है। तो क्या आपको लगता है वैसा एक स्कीम नेशनल, राष्ट्रीय लेवल पे लाना चाहिए ताकि किसान उससे खुश हो? क्योंकि वो लोग अभी भी मांग रहे हैं कि हमें एमएसपी का कोई कानून चाहिए।
आज भी जो किया है केंद्र सरकार ने, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने, वो अद्भुत और अभूतपूर्व है। आप जानते हैं कि लगभग 9 करोड़ से ज्यादा किसानों के खाते में हर 4 महीने में जो राशि जाती है, कभी कोई कल्पना भी नहीं करता था। 6,000 प्रधानमंत्री जी देते हैं। ये देखिए 6,000 हमको कम लग सकती है, लेकिन उन किसानों से पूछिए जिनकी 1 एकड़ जमीन है, 1.5 एकड़ जमीन है, 2 एकड़ जमीन है। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने सभी किसानों का ख्याल रखा, विशेषकर उन किसानों का जो छोटी छोटी जमीन के मालिक थे, जिनकी तरफ किसी की नजर नहीं जाती थी। अब कई फैसले देखिए, डीएपी के रेट 1200 से बढ़ के 2400 रुपया बोरी हो गए। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने तुरंत फैसला किया कि बाकी पैसा केंद्र सरकार ही देगी, किसान को बोरी अगर मिलेगी तो 1200 रुपए में ही मिलेगी। प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना से कभी दूसरी सरकारें जब कांग्रेस की थी, इतने किसान कभी लाभान्वित होते थे क्या? एमएसपी पे जो खरीदी होती है, अब आप बताइए, अकेले मध्य प्रदेश ने 1 करोड़ 30 लाख मीट्रिक टन गेहूं खरीदा, हमने 37 लाख टन धान खरीदी, और केंद्र सरकार सब खरीद रही है। ये जो कुछ हो रहा है वो सचमुच में अभूतपूर्व है, और किसान इससे प्रसन्न हैं। किसानों के हित में लगातार कदम उठाए जा रहे हैं।
बट शिवराज जी, वो जो किसान हैं जो बॉर्डर पर बैठे हुए, दिल्ली सरकार के बॉर्डर पे बैठे हुए, वो उठ नहीं रहे हैं। तो मैं ये पूछना चाहती हूँ, आपने तो मंदसौर में भी किसानों के साथ डील किया है, तो उनको कैसे कन्विंस किया जाए? वो कह रहे हैं कि अब हमें एमएसपी लॉ चाहिए, तो उनके साथ क्या, वो सारे लोग वहीं पे बैठे हुए हैं सर, वो जो सारे किसान हैं?
हमारे कृषि मंत्री नरेंद्र सिंह तोमर जी बहुत धैर्य से, संयम से और सीधे संवाद करके, आपने देखा इतने दिनों तक लगातार उन्होंने चर्चा और बात की है, और केंद्र सरकार लगातार संवाद बनाए हुए।
आज राहुल गांधी का जो वक्तव्य था वो आपने शायद सुना होगा। उन्होंने पार्लियामेंट में जो सरकार ने कहा कि सरकार को ये नहीं मालूम कि कितने किसान मारे गए हैं, 700 किसान वो कहते हैं। तो इसका आप क्या जवाब देंगे सर? उनका ये कहना है पंजाब जो हमारी जो सरकार है, पंजाब में कांग्रेस की सरकार है, उनके पास पूरी लिस्ट है, तो कैसे केंद्र सरकार कह सकती है कि उन्हें मालूम नहीं है कि कौन है वो किसान जो कि मारे गए हैं? तो आप लोग उनको क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
देखिए, राहुल जी के बयान को मैं कभी बहुत गंभीरता से इसलिए नहीं लेता कि उनने गांव नहीं देखे, गांव की गलियां नहीं देखी, खेत नहीं देखे, खेत की पगडंडियां नहीं देखी, खेती नहीं देखी, किसानी नहीं देखी। जिस तरह के वो बयान देते हैं, उन बयानों पे देश की जनता ही और किसान ही भरोसा नहीं करते। नहीं तो कांग्रेस की ये दुर्गति जो आज चारों तरफ हो रही है, चौतरफा, वो नहीं होती। अब राहुल जी को तो कोई समझा देता है, वो वही बात कह देते हैं। और इसलिए मैं ये मानता हूं कि जो परिपक्वता हर एक मुद्दे पर होनी चाहिए। एक स्लोगन छोड़ देते हैं और ज्यादातर उनके स्लोगन हम ट्विटर पर ही देखते हैं, एक ट्वीट किया और छुट्टी पाई। इसलिए ऐसे लोग कभी समस्याओं की गहराई में नहीं जाते। उनको तो कुछ ना कुछ कहना है, क्योंकि मैदान में मुकाबला कर नहीं पाते, और मैदान में मुकाबला नहीं कर सकते तो ट्विटर वार लो, केवल कमेंट्स करो और छुट्टी पाओ। अब ऐसे कमेंट्स से या बयान देने से कभी जनता उनके बारे में गंभीरता से नहीं सोचती। जब लोग ही नहीं सोचते तो मैं काहे के लिए सोचूं?
उनके जो मुख्यमंत्री थे सर, और जिनसे काफी पहले उनकी भी ऑब्वियसली पॉलिटिक्स है इसमें, ऑपोजिशन और सरकार को तो ऑब्वियसली लड़ाई होगी, लेकिन अमरिंदर सिंह जो पंजाब के मुख्यमंत्री थे वो अब भाजपा के काफी करीब आ गए हैं। आपको और आपके पार्टी में सर अब बहुत सारे कांग्रेस के लोग हैं, तो अमरिंदर सिंह का और किसानों का जो ये मुद्दा था उसके बाद ही वो आए हैं, तो उनकी अगर एंट्री हो आपके, उसके बारे में क्या सोचते हैं सर? हाउ विल इट इम्पैक्ट?
अच्छी खासी चलती हुई सरकार को डिस्टर्ब करना और तोड़ना कोई राहुल गांधी जी से सीखे। मध्य प्रदेश में भी कोई हमने कुछ नहीं किया। सिंधिया जी के साथ क्या व्यवहार था उनका? कदम कदम पे अपमानित किया गया। उनके जो साथी थे उनको मिलने का टाइम तक नहीं देती थी यहाँ की सरकार, और भाभी कभी गंभीरता से नहीं लिया। राजस्थान में अब जैसे तैसे कहीं की ईंट कहीं का रोड़ा जैसा मामला चल रहा है। पंजाब में अच्छा खासा कैप्टन अमरिंदर सिंह सरकार चला रहे थे। अब पता नहीं राहुल जी किसकी बातों में आए, सिद्धू जी की आए और किसी की आए, मुझे पता नहीं, लेकिन जब लीडर ऐसे हों तो कांग्रेस को किसी दुश्मन की जरूरत ही नहीं है। धीरे धीरे एक एक करके अपने नेताओं को वो दूर करते जा रहे हैं। अब अमरिंदर जी सचमुच में बहुत गंभीर नेता है, और पंजाब हमारा ऐसा राज्य है जो सीमावर्ती राज्य है, पाकिस्तान से हमारी सीमा लगी हुई है, और अभी भी पाकिस्तान इस फिराक में रहता है कि कैसे वो आतंकवाद को और ज्यादा प्रश्रय देके भारत को अशांत करने का काम करे, आतंकवादी गतिविधियां बढ़ाए। वैसे राज्य को श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी ने डिस्टर्ब किया है। अब तो वहां कांग्रेस के अस्तित्व पर ही सवाल उठ रहा है। अमरिंदर जी देशभक्त हैं, अमरिंदर जी गंभीर नेता हैं, जनाधार वाले नेता हैं। अब मैं इससे ज्यादा कोई टिप्पणी नहीं करूंगा। वो सोचेंगे, समझेंगे और अपना रास्ता तय करेंगे।
आपने तो बिल्कुल ही क्लियर कर दिया सर कि आप राहुल गांधी जी को ज्यादा सीरियसली नहीं लेते हैं, लेकिन आप
देखिए मैं नहीं कह रहा। आप 2014 में कांग्रेस की क्या दुर्गति हुई, कितनी सीटें आई, इसके बाद 2019 में कांग्रेस की कितनी दुर्गति हुई, कितनी सीटें आई, बाकी जगह भी आप देखो। तो मैं नहीं कह रहा, ममता बनर्जी उनको स्वीकार करने को तैयार नहीं है, कह रही कांग्रेस भाड़ में जाए, कांग्रेस का कोई ठेका है, हम विकल्प बनेंगे। तो अब कांग्रेस की हालत तो ये हो गई है कि विपक्षी दलों के नेता कांग्रेस का विरोधी पार्टी के रूप में भी वो नेतृत्व कर पाएगी, इसी पे संदेह व्यक्त कर रहे हैं। तो ये हम नहीं कह रहे, तो जमाना कह रहा है, लोग देख रहे हैं, इसलिए कांग्रेस दुर्गति को प्राप्त हो रही है।
लेकिन ममता बनर्जी को मानेंगे सर आप कि 2024 में तृणमूल का ये कहना है कि अगर मोदी जी को कोई अगर मतलब उनके साथ कोई कॉन्टेक्स्ट, उनके साथ कंपटीशन दे सकते हैं, वो है ममता बनर्जी। तो आप मानेंगे कि बंगाल चुनाव के बाद जहां पे उन्होंने मतलब बहुत ही अच्छा परफॉर्मेंस दिखाया बंगाल में, और थर्ड इलेक्शन में आपकी तरह, आप तो 4th टर्म चीफ मिनिस्टर हैं, वो 3rd टर्म चीफ मिनिस्टर बन गई है, आप मानेंगे कि ऐसा जो आपने राहुल गांधी के बारे में कहा, आप लोग ममता बनर्जी को एक स्ट्रॉन्ग अपोनेंट की तरह देख रहे हैं? क्या आप लोग 2024 में प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं कि ममता बनर्जी लेड ऑपोजिशन से लड़ना पड़ेगा?
देखिए, भारतीय जनता पार्टी को कोई चैलेंज नहीं है। मोदी
ममता बनर्जी भी चैलेंज नहीं है सर।
मैं पूरी बात कर लूं। मोदी जी का जनाधार इतना व्यापक है कि उनके सामने कोई चैलेंज ही नहीं है। अब लड़ाई होनी है दूसरे नंबर पे कौन रहे, कांग्रेस, ममता बनर्जी या और कौन रहता, तो वो आपस में लड़े बड़े, हमें क्या लेना देना।
सर एक चीज आपसे पूछनी थी, हम लोग चुनाव की बात कर रहे हैं, एक बात जो है जो कि कई सारे पार्टी में है, आपके पार्टी के नेता भी बोलते हैं, विपक्ष के पार्टी के नेता भी बोलते हैं, वो ये कहते हैं कि हमें एक ओबीसी सेंसस चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर हम, जैसे आप लोग बहुत ज्यादा वेलफेयर स्कीम्स पे ध्यान देते हैं, तो अगर हम वेलफेयर स्कीम्स को अगर कि वो अच्छी तरह काम करें, उसके लिए बहुत जरूरी है ये जानना कि लोग हैं कितने। तो आप क्या सपोर्ट करते हैं ओबीसी सेंसस को?
जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी का दृष्टिकोण है वही मेरा दृष्टिकोण है, हम लोग अलग विचार नहीं करते कुछ।
लेकिन सर आपका पर्सनल भी तो कोई व्यू होगा कि ये क्यों जरूरी है, या
मैं आपको बताऊं, हम पर्सनल है ही नहीं, हम भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता, तो मैं ऐसा कैसे कह सकता हूं पर्सनल में ये हूं। भारतीय जनता पार्टी में सोच समझ के हम एक विचार के आधार पर चलने वाली पार्टी है और सोच समझ के फैसले करते हैं, तो जो पार्टी तय करती है वो हम सबकी राय होती है।
हाँ, इस बारे में शायद उन्होंने अपना राय कुछ क्लियरली नहीं बताया, तो शायद ये एक प्रॉब्लम एंड इट सीम्स टू बी अ बिट ऑफ अ डायलेमा विद इन द पार्टी। सर दूसरी बात मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहती थी, पिछले कुछ दिनों में आपके स्टेट से अगर हम हेडलाइन देखें तो फिर ये बात, और कुछ दिनों में और उसके पहले भी कई सारे ऐसे इंसिडेंट्स हो चुके हैं कि जो कॉमेडियंस हैं उनके खिलाफ काफी सारा एक्शन लिया जा रहा है। जैसे मुनव्वर फरूकी का कुछ महीनों पहले हुआ था कि उनके शो के पहले ही उन्हें अरेस्ट कर लिया गया, वो 1 महीने थे जेल में। अब हाल ही में वीरदास ने कुछ कहीं पे वीडियो बनाया और आपके मंत्री ने कहा कि हम उनको मध्य प्रदेश में घुसने नहीं देंगे। तो सर ये जो कॉमेडियंस हैं, जो स्टैंड अप कॉमिक्स हैं, वो तो पॉलिटिकल बिल्कुल नहीं है, तो क्यों मध्य प्रदेश सरकार को उनसे डर लगता है? वो कहते हैं हम नहीं आने देंगे इनको।
देखिए, हमें डर किसी से नहीं लगता, लेकिन सोशल मीडिया के युग में आप जानते हैं कि एक ट्वीट या सोशल मीडिया पे डली पोस्ट प्रदेश को अशांत कर सकती है। हमारी कोशिश ये रहती है कि प्रदेश शांति का टापू बना रहे, अनावश्यक कंट्रोवर्सी खड़ी ना हो, और इसलिए सबको अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता है, अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता। लेकिन अगर किसी की भावना को ठेस पहुंचाती है, अपमानित करती है, तो शासन को कानून और व्यवस्था ठीक बनाए रखने के लिए और दूसरे की भावना को भी ठेस ना लगे, इसके लिए कुछ कदम उठाने पड़ते हैं। लेकिन मध्य प्रदेश में सब आए जाएं, अपने भाव अभिव्यक्त करें। देखिए, मुझे अगर मैं स्वतंत्रता की बात करूं तो मुझे मेरा हाथ घुमाने की स्वतंत्रता है, लेकिन उतनी है कि वो किसी की नाक पे ना लगे जाके। अगर नाक पे लगता है तो फिर मुझे सोचना पड़ता है कि दूसरे को कष्ट ना हो, बस इतना ही है, बाकी कोई बात नहीं।
बिल्कुल सर, आपने ठीक कहा, लेकिन मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी कि वीरदास, आपने जो कहा कि वो राइट वगैरह में कोई इंसेंसिटिव वीडियो नहीं होना चाहिए, बट आपने वीरदास का वीडियो देखा जो कि जो यंग लोग हैं जो देखते हैं, कॉमेडी देखते हैं या फिर कुछ सुनते हैं, उनको ये उसमें क्या आपको गलत लगा या आपके सरकार को गलत लगा कि उनको कहा कि आप यहाँ आइए ही मत?
देखिए, दूसरे की भावनाओं को ठेस ना लगे, बस हमारा इतना कहना है, बाकी।
बट उसमें ठेस पहुंचाने की बात क्या थी सर?
अब उसके बारे में मैं कोई स्पष्टीकरण देकर नहीं बताना चाहूंगा। मंत्री ने कमेंट किया, उन्होंने देखा होगा, लेकिन मैं फिर कहता हूं कि हर एक की गरिमा का सम्मान है मध्य प्रदेश में, लेकिन दूसरे की को तकलीफ ना पहुंचे, इतना ध्यान हम लोग रखते हैं।
शिवराज जी, अब मैं थोड़ा आपके करियर के बारे में पूछना चाहूंगी। आप आई थिंक वन ऑफ द मोस्ट सीनियर लीडर्स हैं भाजपा में, और 2005 से आप मुख्यमंत्री हैं और अभी भी है। लोग हमेशा ये बात करते हैं कि कैसे भाजपा इवॉल्व हो रहा है, और ऑब्वियसली जनसंघ जब भाजपा शुरू हुआ था तब 2 नेता थे और अब इतने सारे प्रदेशों में हैं आप लोग। तो ये पूछना चाहूंगी, आपके मुताबिक आपकी पार्टी जो है किस प्रकार से बदली है?
देखिए, भारतीय जनता पार्टी की विकास यात्रा अद्भुत है। भारतीय संस्कृति, जीवन मूल्य, परंपराओं को लेके एक वैकल्पिक राजनीतिक विचारधारा एकात्म मानव दर्शन के रूप में दी, तो पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी ने, डॉक्टर श्यामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी हमारे संस्थापक थे, पहले अध्यक्ष थे, और दीनदयाल जी उनके साथ थे। इस जोड़ी ने राष्ट्रवाद की ध्वजा पताका को लेके संगठन बढ़ाते हुए अपना सफर प्रारंभ किया। डॉक्टर मुखर्जी जी का तो बलिदान हुआ, लेकिन बाद में फिर भारतीय जनता पार्टी जनसंघ के रूप में, उस समय जनसंघ था, प्रगति करती चली गई। फिर डॉक्टर श्यामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी, पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी के बाद लीडर अनेकों हुए, लेकिन फिर अटल जी और अडवाणी जी, उनने भारतीय जनता पार्टी का नेतृत्व किया और एक नए मुकाम पर भारतीय जनता पार्टी पहुंची। कई राज्यों में हमारी सरकारें बनी और केंद्र में भी अटल जी के नेतृत्व में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की एनडीए की सरकार बनी, और उस समय प्रगति और विकास को नए पंख लगे। प्रधानमंत्री सड़क योजना हो, स्वर्णिम चतुर्भुज परियोजना हो, पोखरण का परमाणु विस्फोट हो, एक वैभवशाली भारत खड़ा होना शुरू हुआ। और उसके बाद आज मुझे कहते हुए गर्व है, प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमान नरेंद्र मोदी जी हमारे देश ने दुनिया में आज जो स्थान उन्होंने बनाया है वैश्विक लीडर का, वो सचमुच में मैन ऑफ आइडियाज है। तड़फ और ललक है देश की जनता की जिंदगी बदलने की और भारत को आगे और बहुत आगे ले जाने की। मैं सचमुच में आज जो परिदृश्य देखता हूं मुख्यमंत्री रहते हुए, मैं पहले भी कई देशों में गया था, हमारे देश की तरफ इतने सम्मान की नजरों से कभी नहीं देखा गया जितना आज मोदी जी की लीडरशिप में देखा जा रहा है। और यह सम्मान केवल मोदी जी का नहीं, 135 करोड़ भारतवासियों का सम्मान है। तो प्रधानमंत्री जी अनथक परिश्रम करते, दिन और रात मेहनत, टारगेट तय करते हैं और उसको पूरा करने के लिए जी जान एक कर देते हैं। उनको देख के हम लोगों को लगता है कि हम और ज्यादा मेहनत करें। तो आज नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में अमित शाह जी उनके साथ खड़े हुए हैं, जेपी नड्डा जी के नेतृत्व में भारतीय जनता पार्टी आगे बढ़ रही है। जो सपना कभी जनसंघ के संस्थापकों ने देखा था वो सपना पूरा हो रहा है। आप देखिए, एक नहीं अनेकों अद्भुत उपलब्धियां, चाहे सामरिक दृष्टि से देश को शक्तिशाली बनाने का सवाल हो, कश्मीर में धारा 370 हो, एक नहीं, मैं वो पूरी श्रृंखला में नहीं जाना चाहता। जो सोचा था वो पूरा करने का काम मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में हो रहा है। और इससे आगे का सफर मैं सचमुच में कहता हूं कि ये सदी 21वीं सदी जो चल रही है वो भारत की होगी और ज्यादा देर नहीं है, मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में ही होगी।
बट सर, आपको नहीं लगता है कि पार्टी का कल्चर भी, मतलब वर्क एथिक्स भी थोड़े से बदल गए हैं? जैसे आजकल यहाँ पे जो हम पार्लियामेंट में देख रहे हैं, तो वहां पे विपक्ष के जो नेता है उनका इतना डायलॉग बिल्कुल नहीं है, या फिर बैक चैनल जो होता था पहले कि वो लोग दोस्ती सभी में थी, अगर वो सरकार में भी हो या फिर विपक्ष में, वो आके पार्लियामेंट में तो लड़ते थे लेकिन बाकी उनके काफी ज्यादा रिलेशनशिप अच्छा था उनका। तो मैंने ये भी पढ़ा कि 2 हफ्ते पहले आपके जो ऑपोजिशन में है कमलनाथ, उनका जन्मदिन था, आप वहां उनको विश करने के लिए आप मिलने चले गए। तो ये जो आपका जो स्टाइल है वो नए बीजेपी से थोड़ा हटके है, नहीं?
एक मैं आपको बताऊं कि केंद्र में भी दोस्ती सबसे है, कोई झगड़ा थोड़ी है और झगड़े का कोई सवाल भी नहीं है। अपोजिशन का पूरा सम्मान भी है, लेकिन अब कोई संसद चलने ही ना दे तो सत्ता पक्ष क्या करेगा? और इसलिए सद्भाव की, संवाद की प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अनेकों बार कहा है, क्योंकि यह अधिकार मेरा नहीं है, जो पार्लियामेंट में हमारे मित्र काम कर रहे हैं मंत्री के रूप में, वो सब संवाद रखते हैं, बातचीत करते हैं, स्मूथली संसद की कार्रवाई चले। अब पिछले सत्र में ऐतिहासिक काम हुए, कई बिल पास हुए, आपने देखा। आज भी कोशिश वही है और इसलिए संवाद भी है और स्नेह भी है। अब सामने अगर पराजय के कारण हम बौने हो गए तो हम चलने नहीं देंगे संसद। इसके कारण अगर गतिरोध आते हैं तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं?
बिल्कुल सर, संवाद शायद आप यहाँ पे ऑपोजिशन के नेताओं को सबको जानते होंगे, लेकिन अब शायद केंद्र में संवाद इतना ज्यादा है नहीं।
सर्वदलीय बैठकें होती है, बैठकों में बातचीत होती है, चर्चा करके रास्ता निकलने के प्रयास होते हैं, यही किया जा सकता है।
बिल्कुल सर, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी, अब आप 4 बार मुख्यमंत्री हो चुके हैं, आप अपने आप को 10 साल बाद या फिर 5 साल बाद कहाँ देखते हैं? आप क्या करना चाहेंगे? मतलब आपने मुख्यमंत्री तो काफी देर रहे हैं, व्हाट वुड यू लाइक टू डू, वेयर डू यू सी योरसेल्फ?
देखिए, 2 चीजें मैं आपसे कहूंगा। एक, राजनीति हमारे लिए कैरियर नहीं है, सत्ता के लिए नहीं, सेवा का एक माध्यम है। और हमारे यहाँ कौन क्या काम करेगा ये पार्टी तय करती है। व्यक्ति के नाते मैं आपको सच बता रहा हूं, मैंने कभी सोचा नहीं था कि मैं एमएलए का भी चुनाव लड़ूंगा, विधायक का चुनाव। मुझे जब पार्टी ने 90 में कहा लड़ो तो लड़ लिए। इसके बाद मैं आज आप एक रहस्य उद्घाटित कर रहा हूं, विधायक बनने के बाद मैं संसद में जाने नहीं चाहता था। मुझे लगता था कि मुझे 1.25 साल ही हुआ है, क्योंकि अटल जी ने सीट खाली की लखनऊ और विदिशा, तो मुझे पार्टी ने कहा कि विदिशा से लड़ो। मैंने पहले 1-2 बार कहा कि मैं अभी तो विधानसभा में गया है, लेकिन पार्टी का नहीं लड़ना है, तो मैं सांसद बन गया। पार्टी ने सांसद बना दिया, 5 बार सांसद रहा, फिर कहा मुख्यमंत्री बनो। तो ये हमारे यहाँ पार्टी तय करती है, व्यक्ति तय नहीं करता। मैं कभी नहीं सोचता कि मैं क्या करूंगा, मैं तो ये देखता हूं कि मेरी पार्टी मुझे कौन सा दायित्व देना चाहती है। मेरा काम केवल इतना है कि जो जिम्मेदारी मुझे दी जाए उस जिम्मेदारी को मैं बेहतर तरीके से दिन रात अपने आप को झोंक के कैसे अच्छे ढंग से पूरा करूं, ताकि जनता की जो जरूरतें हैं, अपेक्षाएं हैं, उनको भी हम पूरा कर पाए और मेरे हाथों से पार्टी का मेरी कोई नुकसान ना हो, मैं पार्टी के काम को भी आगे बढ़ा पाऊं, जनता की भी बेहतर सेवा करूं, राजनीति के माध्यम से देश की भी बेहतर सेवा करूं और पार्टी को भी आगे बढ़ाने में मैं सहयोगी बनूं। ये मेरा भाव रहता है। इसलिए कौन कहां रहेगा ये तय पार्टी को करना है। आज कल परसों जो तय करेगी पार्टी करेगी।
शिवराज सिंह जी, थैंक यू सो मच कि आपने हमसे बातचीत की एंड ऑल आवर बेस्ट विशेस विद यू सर। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर जॉइनिंग अस एट द हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स समिट।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और कभी मध्य प्रदेश पधारिए, अच्छा राज्य आइए, आपका स्वागत है।
धन्यवाद सर, थैंक यू।
नमस्कार।
A vision becomes a milestone when it helps make our lives richer with love and laughter. When it helps make a cleaner, smarter, and a more beautiful planet. So that you can set off on joyous new journeys and adventures. Building stronger bonds and bridging impossible distances, which take you from the ever new to the forever beautiful. Opening up vistas and windows to a vibrant new world. A vision becomes a milestone when it touches millions of lives. Aditya Birla Group. Big in your life.
We made a promise to be at the forefront of development, to power growth across the country, to set an example for cleanliness and create a land of opportunity. From bountiful reserves of minerals to steel that's strengthened by resolve, from untouched tribal cultures to undiscovered lands of old, we are many and we are one. We are Chhattisgarh.
We always wonder what lies beyond. What lies beyond conventions?
Hello, Blue Link. I'm feeling hot.
Blue Link, I'm feeling cold.
Beyond technology. Beyond innovations. Beyond mobility. Amazing things can happen when we go beyond. At Hyundai, we're going beyond mobility, and you're welcome to join us.
My parents. मेरे लिए ना कॉलेज चुना ना सब्जेक्ट्स, बट उनका प्लान था बहुत ही स्पेशल, जिससे बन गया मेरा फ्यूचर।
LIC का न्यू चिल्ड्रंस मनी बैक प्लान, जो आपके बच्चों का फ्यूचर करे प्रोटेक्ट, हर जरूरी मोड़ पर।
इट्स अ फ्यूचर बिल्डिंग प्लान।
हाय माँ।
Luxury. In India, I discovered that true luxury isn't something you buy off a shelf. True luxury is a feeling that you are the Maharani of your world, and it can be all designed around you. All the beauty is yours. All the music is yours. India showed me that luxury doesn't follow designers and brands. True luxury follows its own heart.